They transfer me over to the hospital, to an actual hospital, by ambulance, and I coded once in the ambulance, and then I think 3 or 4 times at the hospital after that.
And you know, you're big, you're intimidating, you know, that's going to be that first impression. But what you got to remember is you had their attention.
There's a reason a lot of the best strongman athletes are usually athletes that were in some other sport. All of that in one big package, and then you make them stronger. That's your perfect recipe for a strongman.
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, guys, we're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Ryan Rhodes, and being assisted and co-hosted by Ilya.
Great to be back here.
Say your last name for me.
Khazov.
Yep, I mean, he was on podcast, whatever number. I went to write it down, didn't write it down. Your whole history is through there. And to jump this off, I'll introduce you real quick, right? So athlete, business owner, event promoter, producer, 5 times in the world's strongest man, father, husband of 3, and I'm sorry, husband and father of 3.
Yeah, I'm
right.
both.
Maybe my modafinil dose needs a little adjusted, right? I have to double check that, and we're going to talk about your powered heart, or however we say, being a cyborg. So we're going to get into that. We have a crew that helps to support the podcast. So it's a Discord group. They get free ebooks, webinars, all these other things. And we allow them to ask, a question for each one of the podcasts. So cool. The question that I have from the crew, and if you want to join the crew, click a link in the description. So there's that. Also, if you want to support the show, we have limited edition apparel, and buy anything from elitefts.com. Getting a little better at those promos. So the first question here cracked me up because I was in the situation at one point in time. I know you have as well. You may be still dealing with it now. How do you wipe your ass? So whoever wants to jump in first, when you're really big, how do you wipe your ass?
Okay, I gotcha. So, at one point I was 360 pounds a few years back, and then tore my bicep. This is my favorite explanation.
Oh my God, I didn't think about having a torn bicep.
So, we have to demonstrate it, okay? So with the torn bicep, you can't do it lefty. Right? You can't do it lefty because you spent your whole life wiping where I have. Maybe, are you lefty?
I switched to being a lefty.
Yeah.
He's an ambi wiper.
Yes.
Right. And so for me, it was throwing my arm back.
Oh, so you had to whip the arm.
it was throwing the arm back, throwing it out behind me and hoping it cut, right?
Yeah.
To be able to get it. Because I'm not doing this one. I'm not doing that one. We're not going there. So yeah, that was it. What about you? What you got?
So yeah, I've injured my right hand, so I had to switch to the left, and I tore my left bicep, so I had to switch to the right. The answer is bidets.
Well,
hands down.
Yeah, I mean, that's obvious, right? Not everybody has access to that.
You wait until you get to one.
Yeah.
You hold it in until you get to one.
Now with
bidet that can handle that?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a big
They make
dude.
pretty good ones. High-powered ones. Yeah. The industrial jet-power ones.
With pec tears and shoulder things and things that I've had when I was larger, the same thing. I tried the momentum thing, right? But there's the lack of mobility there. So my only solution was to make the biggest wad of toilet paper I possibly could. So it's like this big. You just hook it, and just kind of hope it's in there. And the funniest story I have with it, I used to train with this guy. I don't want to call anybody out by name, but just 300, probably 30 pounds, but just jacked as fuck too. And we were on a road trip, and he would have to shower afterwards, right? So, and this I still don't understand, and you'll see where I'm going in a minute. So I'm wondering, why in the fuck are you showering 3 times a day? You don't stink and stuff like that. So I asked, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, well, it's the only way that I can clean my ass after I take a shit. At first I thought, that makes sense, right? If you have one of the disposable or one of the detachable shower heads, you just go down there and you just blow it out like a bidet. The shower did not have that, right? So I'm like, well, so I have to continue with this. So what are you doing? Are you like bending over and pulling your ass cheeks apart to be able to blow this thing out? And essentially that was that. So then I have to continue, right? Because there's other people in the room now, so it has to become this full-fledged conversation. Like, so what do you do when you're at home, right? It's like, well, that's easy. I have my wife to do this. So I'm like, okay, now what the hell does this look like?
That looks like a good marriage, Dave.
Yeah. And he walks over to the wall and he puts his arms up on the wall, like you would have to like on a police car.
I
right?
think I've watched this episode.
Yeah, and
on a certain website.
And he spreads the legs and he's like, she'll come in, just like clean it all up and then kind of go from there. And I'm like, multiple times a day. He's like, yes. And it's, of course, a bidet would be like the solution to all this, where now, I mean, the dude wipes may help, because you can kind of, it's like get the big ones.
They're the next best option.
It's always on my Christmas list because, people ask for lists of shit. It's just like put the dude wipes in there because the baby wipes can't do that. No. That gets like too.
And you're not a baby.
No, but it's like, it's like running and shit, so if you're going to go for the big side swipe, you got like shit dripping out of your hand.
I got it. Like the solution, any pet owner that's throwing the ball with their dog, you go and you get that little pitcher, right? That you stuff the ball stuff the toilet paper into that.
Yeah. They have tools.
We're going back to the Roman times.
Yeah, they have tools for this because I did find that after my hip replacement, you're looking for all kinds of, and it's like, oh my God, there's something to help put your socks on. There's an ass wipe tool. I never went and had to deal with
back in the Roman times, they had the sponge on a stick. So
or they just didn't wipe. I mean, they also use leaves and shit.
They use the sponge on a stick.
Yeah, leaves.
So that works. Or leaves, sure, leaves.
Poison ivy in your asshole.
You get that itch.
Okay. Anyhow,
so stay tuned for an Elite Fit.
Yeah. We'll have to figure something out with that.
Tools for big guys.
I have done stuff like that before, where I'd find things like that and stick it on the website as a product real deep. Just see, like there was, the little mini vibrators and stuff.
Yeah.
Pocket rockets or whatever they are. One of the suppliers that we have for rehabilitation things sells those as finger massages. They're like hand massages. Right?
Sure.
So I stick it somewhere deep on the website. Never sold one of them, but just waiting. And the copy was amazing, because that might have been when Wendler was around. So every now and again, we would pick a product and just write the most fucked up product copy for it, knowing nobody's ever going to read this. So we put it out there. I got to start doing that shit again. Awesome. Anyhow, get back into the podcast here. We can talk about wiping asses for an hour. So with the Strongman, what's your origin story? How did you get involved in it to begin with? So going way back.
Going way, way back.
Yeah.
1999, and I was watching a strongman by the name of Jesse Marunde on ESPN, just throttling people, young kid, jacked, awesome personality. And I was like, that looks so cool. I want to do that too. And I hooked up with a local group in...
Did he have his forum at that time?
His forum?
His forum?
Oh, yeah. That came a little bit later.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I want to say that was probably about like 2003 or so when that popped up. That was it, man. That was great. That was like the old T Nation. I mean, it was that or T Nation. But I saw him doing that and started training with the crew in Northern Cal, and it was so damn hard. I was powerlifting, not as a powerlifter competitively or anything, but I was lifting that style, and of course bodybuilding, because everybody starts there. But I was lifting that style for so many years before, and I was in pretty dang good shape. And I remember showing up to work out with these old guys. Shout out to Mark, Charles, and Hamish. And they had all the implements there, all the stuff that I saw on TV, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna fucking destroy these old guys, and I was in my early 20s at the time, and I remember they worked me, they throttled me, and I think I was at the time I was benching 4 for reps, and probably I think that was the year that I actually crossed over 5 for the first time on my flat bench, and they had a log there, and it was like a girl's log. It was like an 8-inch girl's log, and I picked it up, and it was so freaking weird. I could not figure out. I would get it up, and I'd get off balance. I couldn't figure out how to press the damn thing, and I was like, "This has to be the hardest strength sport that there is. I'm going to do this from now on. So I've never competed in powerlifting. I've never competed in bodybuilding. I've never competed in any other strength sport except for strongman. I'm a purebred strongman. Yeah.
What about that? Because a lot of people in that same situation would say, myself included, fuck this, I'm going to go back to the barbell.
Yeah.
Because it's humbling.
Yeah.
Right. So what about it made you want to stay with it?
So,
and when you went into that, how much did you weigh at that time?
At that time, I mean, I fluctuated. See, I've competed at 105 and, I was probably about 265. So I was probably about 120K or so at that point. And pretty damn statically strong, and in really good cardio shape too. But it's a different thing when you get into strongman. It really challenges the limits of anybody's cardiovascular strength and their physical strength and their mental toughness. So there's aspects of it that make it just super difficult, and the three together really appealed to my wanting to challenge myself. I've got all the respect in the world for powerlifters. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up in powerlifting. You lift something up, it gets too light, you add weight, the weight goes up,
Yeah.
So and it's very simple, and it's beautiful, and it's pure, and I like that about it. And I appreciate the opposite of strongman. Strongman is chaotic and weird, and it challenges you in ways that any other sport can't challenge you. So it's like, pick up this weird fucking thing and then go carry it for 100 feet and then go bring that other weird ass thing back over here. And that's what you're doing today. So the other half of it is the next day when you come home, right? The guys always tell me that, everybody always shows up and then 9 out of 10 never come back.
Yeah.
The next day I just felt destroyed. I was physically throttled in a way that I can't even. There's nothing that's ever done it. I played ball when I was younger. I was, I've always been an athlete. There was nothing that's kicked my ass like strongman does. And so, especially things like yoke. No. There's a thing with squatting is hard. It's a different thing to me when I pick up 1,000-pound yoke and then have to trudge along for 100 feet with it. It's everything in my body. Everything's firing. Yeah. It's like my arms are trying to stabilize. My calves are, I'm trying to make the smallest, effective step or the biggest effective step to get to where I need to be. And, and then when you get done with it, the day after you do yoke for the first time in a while, it's like, holy shit, I feel like I got hit by the bus. That's what Clinton Darden would say that,
Yeah.
I got hit by the bus. And
the bus. Yeah. Not a bus, but the bus. It's a Clinton thing.
Yeah. But it's, so there's nothing that kicked my ass quite like that. And
sorry, we even have a term for it, the yoke flu, for how you feel.
Yoke flu.
And it lasts a few days. You genuinely feel sick for a few days.
Yeah, it throws you. I mean, they talk about the deadlift being such a extreme CNS depressor. The yoke is as a whole other thing, But in doing that too, all my gym lifts, all my power lifts went up from doing strongman. And so it was like, well, I get the best of both worlds then. I like getting on bench every once in a while and slinging weight. It's a little weird now with the pacemaker, but I like jumping on and throwing weight. I love squatting, especially with the safety squat and stuff. But if you do that for too long and then you don't go back and touch strongman, then it's like starting over again. And it's like, oh, I forgot that's why I did it.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's why I married my wife too, because she beat my ass. There was no other woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So same thing. I just appreciate difficult things. I when somebody says, you can't do that or that's too hard or whatever, it's like, oh, I can do that. I want to try that. I want to, whatever. So, and that's kind of the story of my life.
How long was it until your first competition then after that?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. Yeah. It was so long. That's 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
what do you remember what the first competition was like?
I want to say, I don't think it was California's Strongest Man. I could tell you one of the first ones I did was in Washington State, and it was held at the third CrossFit affiliate ever to open. And the guy was also a strongman, the guy that owned it, Curtis Bowler. And so he knew how to do a good show, and it, it was great. It felt like I was like at the big show, and that was the first one where I really met and made friends. And like back in the old days, the shows weren't like super organized. It was in some guy's backyard.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can remember going to some, and it was in like a Motel 8 parking lot.
Yeah,
some dude's backyard.
They still do that. Yeah, but like the original ones, it was like show up over here. We're gonna have a training day between these guys who are 3 hours away and those guys that are 3 hours away in the other direction, and we're gonna drink beers and barbecue after. And it was a lot of fun, but not going anywhere fast. Not that I've ever cared about that aspect of it, but they started getting more organized at an amateur level to where you could actually show up and go do these cool shows, like that one I was telling you about. It was Mount Rainier Strongest Man. That was a great show, and it was also a charity show too.
Look, I get it. A power bar is a staple of every gym, but what do you do after that? This is Dave Tate from Elite FTS, here to talk to you about specialty bars. Specialty bars are what's going to take your training to the next level. You're probably already familiar with our SS yoke bar, which every gym should have, which he's using there, which provides comfort for the squat, especially if you're a washed up meathead like myself and you can no longer grab a bar, or you have shoulder injuries, or you're just looking for variation in your training. At Elite FTS, we have specialty bars that take care of all your training needs, from an American cambered press bars to fat bars, curl bars. We even have power bars. So head over to elitefts.com, toolbar, bars and weights, or blowout menu, bars and weights.
So yeah,
so then what was the trajectory of that until getting into the world's strongest man?
So that's many years later.
Yeah.
So the trajectory of that, the trajectory of that was going through the drama with my heart. That was sort of the catalyst that sprung me off to the other side of it. I'd been training for a long time and been very, gotten good results. And I was the guy that would post lifts up on the internet and people go, "Holy shit, that's really heavy. How come you're not competing?" Or like that kind of thing. It's just like, because I did Mount Rainier a few times because it benefited kids with Fragile X, and I would do like things like that, like just because I had kids. Those things were more important to me than competing. I enjoyed training. The training was what was the thing for me, and the competition was just a fun every now and thing, time. It was you'd go, you hang out, and you'd have fun. So one day the heart stops working, and I wake up on the ground of my kitchen, fallen, smashed my head, and my dog's just staring at me, kind of like, "What the hell, dude?" And I didn't know what happened. I thought I fainted. Fast forward, there was a lot of things that happened. I ended up having to get a pacemaker, dual lead pacemaker, and then the doctor saying, "Now, just so you know, I know you lift weights, but from now on, you can't lift weights anymore. As a matter of fact, you can't carry more than 40 pounds.
Yeah.
This fucking arbitrary bullshit." They tell everybody. I learned later, they tell everybody this bullshit.
Yeah.
I've been through that 3-4 times now.
Yeah, I've heard it several times. It's always 40 pounds.
Yeah, it's 40 pounds.
Really sure
I think probably because they don't know that it's a 45-pound plate. I remember seeing 4 there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't lift more than 40 pounds ever again. And he tells me this as they're pushing me over into the cath lab to throw this pacer into me. And
now, how long did it take until they realized that that was a solution that you needed? Because
I died 6 times that day, so there was no room.
So you didn't deal with this for years beforehand with meds and stuff like that.
No. So I'd grown up. I had a heart murmur since I was younger. I was telling Ilya about this. I had a heart murmur since I was younger, and it had never given me any kind of a problem. And I got to the point where I got older and I grew out of it. The doctor was like, "We can't detect anymore." I thought, "Cool, I'm good. I'm golden." So just nothing. And then one day, I was literally, this is funny actually, I was actually shopping on elitefts.com was trying to buy my safety squat bar, which I bought a few weeks.
Probably shipping prices, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I was shopping and I just got home from the gym and I got up and then I collapsed on the ground and then I called a friend up of mine who's a doctor at an ER and he said, you need to get in here. Just make sure that, you know, you're not having some kind of a cardiac issue. So went in and it happened again, heart stopped. And had my wife with me and because she drove me to the ER obviously. And she was just sitting like this when I came back. She was standing there like this, and I said, "What?" And she says, "You just turned completely white, and like died, and then turned beet red, and then came back." And so they transferred me over to the hospital, to an actual hospital, by ambulance, and I coded once in the ambulance, and then. I think 3 or 4 times at the hospital after that. But it got to the point where I could, interestingly, being like hyper in tune with our bodies as athletes, you know, I can just, you can tell when things are off. I can tell when my heart was about to stop. And so I would hit the button, call the nurse and say it was going to happen again. And it got to the point where it's getting like, I don't know, this is a lot. And I remember waking up and screaming at the staff when I woke up, something like, "No, you can't have my soul," or something like that. In my head, I'd rehearsed it before, and it was going to sound really funny. My wife said, "You came back and you were like," and they were looking at you like, "What the hell is going on?" So yeah, I thought I was going to do something funny and whatever. Eventually, yeah, I got diagnosed with something called Stokes Adams, which they've changed it. I think they just call it cardiac asystole now, or cardiac syncope. It's one. The way it appears is like I'm fainting. Actually, if you looked at me, you would say that guy's fainting. He's still breathing, and everything else. But in reality, like my heart is stopped. I'm still breathing, and the blood has pooled into my lungs and is becoming hyperoxygenated because I'm still breathing, but the blood's not moving. And so when my heart starts back up by itself, which is what was happening, I would go out, you know, initially for, I couldn't tell you initially how long it was, but say I went out like 30 seconds the first time, the second time was like 45 seconds, and then it was like a minute, and then it kept getting longer and longer. And so I would come back, and then that blood would get pumped through my body, and I would appear like bright red, like the devil. And so that's kind of, you know, how that all went. I got diagnosed with the Stokes Adams. They put a dual lead pacer in me, and my bad electrophysiologist said, "No more lifting." So back to your point, he told me no more lifting. And that was when I decided, like, I'm definitely going to lift now. I'm going to lift more. And if there's a way to, you go online, it's the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, don't do that. You're going to break the wires and the leads. You know, don't do any kind of lifting. Don't touch it at all. Don't, you know, just avoid anything contact wise. And I was like, no, I'm going to figure it out. And so I spent a lot of time just researching how I could train in a way that wasn't going to destroy the hardware that I had, and do it to the level that I had to get to Worlds.
So with the pacemaker, if the heart goes under a certain rhythm, it's going to shock it back. Is that correct?
So it's kind of weird. So what they found was that my heart stops 3 times a minute.
Yeah.
So since we've been talking in like the last 10 minutes, my heart probably stopped around, or tried to stop around 30 times. And it acts as sort of a trapeze. And so if the heart rate starts going down, it catches it and bounces it back up.
Now, what if it goes up too high?
I don't have that problem.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's other guys that go into tachycardia, and they get cardio defibrillators. You see a lot of guys who have been unintelligent with the way that they use substances, and they end up with myopathy and rhythm disorders and things like that. I knew a guy who was blasting shitloads of Equipose, one of the best bench pressers in the world, and he's like, "Why do I have these heart rate issues?" And it's like, it's the frickin', you know, the horse hormone you're shooting into your ass. So there's guys that get those kinds of things and end up having to get defibrillators. Mine it's a little bit different. Okay.
Well, that's why I was wondering with the training, though, because if it works in that regard, then how in the hell are you going to train for strongman? Because when you start pushing that heart rate up, bam, it's going to get zapped and you're not going to be able to pull it up.
Yeah.
Or if you're on beta blockers or something like that, it's going to limit how high that heart rate can really go.
Yeah, I'm pure pacemaker. So what happens, and it's sketchy because it's happened sometimes with heavy overheads. It's less prone to bradying when my heart rate is going faster. It's like if you rev your engine, while your engine is like fucked, your engine might sound like it's running pretty good, but as soon as it goes back to idle, it's just blah, 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 blah. That's what my heart kind of does. And so if I can keep it high, there's a good chance that I won't have that Brady effect after. But it has happened before. Under all sorts of exercises where I've Brady'd down mid-set. I've done it once with very heavy squats on my back. I've done it once with very heavy overheads, and I could feel it immediately. Like it kicks in and then it holds me at a flat 55 or 52. I think it's 52. And so you're going where your brain is like 160,
Yeah.
or whatever, and then you go to 55 and it's like, so all of a sudden your heart's beating at 50, or the pacer's beating you at 55. You're only getting the oxygen, that you need for 55 BPM, not 160. And so you do what you can, bail from the lift, or get it racked up and take a step back and wait for it to catch up. Thank God it doesn't happen too often, but it's something that I've had to deal with. I've dealt with it at Worlds, man. I'm sitting, trying to lug a sandbag, and then like my heart stops, and I'm like, it sucks.
Yeah.
But it's a minute, I guess, part of the grand scheme. If I'm lucky, I'll compete once or twice a year, and so I'm not worried about so much in competition with that kind of thing. Mostly it's dropping a bar on my face while I'm in my garage and having my kids find me or something.
Yeah.
I'm kind of more concerned about that. So I take precautions. I use the spotter arms. I use straps on things that normal people should do. Try to be sort of cognizant of the risk and address it.
So when you were trying to figure out how to go about your training, obviously everybody's telling you not to do that.
Right.
So how did you navigate that? Because I get part of it's just like, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyhow. But you have kids too, so there's another part that you don't want to actually kill yourself in the process.
Yeah. Well, I was at the time, I was coming up on 40, and there was like a lot of things that I realized at the same time. I realized that I've been doing this sport for so long, and I never even tried to go to Worlds. Like I was satisfied with just lifting a lot of weight and throwing it up online, or showing it to my kid or whatever like that. That's all it was for me. And that I thought, like, kind of what a waste that is. Like I should actually just push it. One time, try to push it and see. And so. And it was like that with my career and everything else at the time. It was like, what the fuck am I doing? I look back and I'm like, I've got all sorts of cool stuff. I've got money, I've got things, and what I don't have is my kids are getting older and I'm not spending enough time with them. I'm not being as good a friend as I could be. I should be helping my friends out more. I should be doing more things. So it led into like this whole side quest of my life, where I was engaging these other things that I hadn't been as serious as I should have about them. With Strongman, I decided that I wanted to go to Worlds. They had opened up divisions for World's Strongest Man through the official Strongman Games, which was a venture from Darren Sadler, of the old school World's Strongest Man guy, Colin Bryce, another old school World's Strongest Man guy, and then Lynn Morehouse. And they, I had some friends that got invited in 2017. I was at the time working towards being able to overhead press 5 plates. That was like my thing. I just want to overhead 5 plates, and I ended up getting that year. I got to exactly 500 pounds on a push press, and I sent that over to Lynn, and Lynn said, "Holy shit," and gave me my invite. And so that year I hung back because I had some. I was working with some trafficked children at the time, and we had some court dates that didn't line up with Worlds, and so I stayed back to lock that down. And then the next year, 2018, was the first time that I ended up going, and at that point, I think that was, because over Christmas time after Worlds, I think I did a 520 push press, and then went on to Worlds that year and then placed 17th. But the big thing was just deciding that, you know, like, I'm going to go there, I'm going to do this. And then once I did it once, it was like, I want to do it 3 times. And just to say that I did it 3 times, you know, and prove that it wasn't like a fluke. And then I was like, I want to do it 5 times. It was just kind of like doing that. Now at 5, I feel like pretty, I mean, like what do I got to prove? I'm not like, I don't want to. I mean, you can get really far in the sport, with any kind of a build, and you know, depending on how far you want to push it with yourself and the things that you're willing to do, that really is what's going to differentiate the guy that wins or the champion versus the guy like me. And I'm not the champion. You know, like I enjoy the sport. I am doing it. I like the journey of it. You know, I'm not trying to get anywhere except to, you know, not, you know, hurt after I do yard work or something. You know, or to be able to throw my kid around in the pool or whatever. That's not my thing. I like playing, you know. I like the camaraderie of the sport when there are good people. Unfortunately, as you get older, those guys start to drop off, either from passing away or from bailing from the sport. But that's like my favorite part of it. And so yeah, that's, you know, that was it. It was deciding that, you know, like, I'm not going to let something like this hold me back. I can beat this. I can figure it out, and I do it, and I did.
So when you decided that, how did your training change?
To jump in on that, sorry.
Yeah.
When I was just starting out strongman and before I became professional, competing on a professional level, I actually followed some of your videos and took some ideas and inspiration from the way you were doing your overhead pressing, which got my overhead press to go up quite a bit.
Wow.
Such as?
So the way he set it up, and he was doing, you know, push presses out of the rack, just to be careful with the pacemaker, just that whole idea of how he came about the techniques and methods that he used to prep for it because of the pacemaker, I guess.
I can tell because Ilya is a large guy, and so larger guys have a trouble with range. And so I'm going to guess that you were having a hard time getting the bar to your chest. So driving through it, was that one of the things?
I think cleaning it was fine. It was getting it past my head usually.
It was getting it past your head.
So working from that spot really worked well for me.
So one of the things that I started doing was I brought my grip in because with a normal weightlifter's grip, you're out here on the rings, and in doing that, it spreads the load over your collarbones, right? My pacemaker wire runs between my top ribs and my collarbone. And so I want to avoid anything that's pulling it across me like that. And so what I did was I brought my grip in, and I keep my elbows tucked like they teach you to do in bench pressing, you know?
Yeah.
So, but in doing that, I lost the ROM to touch the bar to my chest. So I couldn't drive, I couldn't use my body to drive the bar up. So I got around that by hugging the bar, and then as I popped up, I would release, and I would kind of slingshot.
What do you mean as you popped up, you'd release what?
So as I popped up to press the bar overhead to kind of release the tension on there. Yeah. So I would tension back and then kind of hug it to my body and then let that isostatic rebound kind of snap the bar up.
Yeah.
And in doing that, I never had any kind of side contact on my pacer at all. So I was able to, that's actually kind of the cool part of the 500 is I did the 500 with a close grip. And so,
that close grip is what got mine to go up quite a bit.
Yeah. And so, and so that's kind of, that was one of the bigger ones. There's a lot of like technical like BS with just the way that whole shoulder complex works, but it's really avoiding the side contact and avoiding spreading tension across the front of your rib cage, you know, in any way that you can. And so it's in the end is kind of basic, you know, keep your elbows tucked, you know, keep the bar, you know, flex the way that I was trying to tell you to do it, and then don't let the bar hit you.
Well, I would assume that's also going to make you have to stay more braced too.
It does.
Because the last thing you're going to do is open your abdominal wall.
Yeah.
You know, to stretch that. So you're going to have to brace down to keep that down. Yeah,
it's just at a spot. So I can still do incline presses. I can get on an incline bench because I press right across my nipples right here. And the pacer is right up here. So the only thing I have to worry about with bench is coming down hard too high, you know. So now I want to keep it tight and I bring it right across. But with the overhead, it's keeping it under your chin, you know, as you want to dump it out front. And while it's floating, you also have to balance it. That's, the really tough part. But keeping it up under your chin, moving your head out of the way before you press it so you don't knock yourself out, and then getting it to lock out and bailing without landing on your chest. It's,
Any changes you had to make to the yoke then?
No, yoke goes behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
but you're opened.
We are, yeah, but I'm not opened up here.
That's true.
And so I'm grabbing down low on the uprights on the yoke.
Now, if it was a barbell squat, you would have an issue.
Barbell squat's really difficult for me. Yeah. And that's where like things like the SS yoke, when I bought that for the first time, I started doing those, and I was actually worried about the pad. I was worried about the pad hitting it. And so the first SS yoke bar I had, I took the cover off, and I hollowed out a spot just right over there over the pad, just something small enough and gradual enough that it didn't catch it, but it also didn't smash it. So I tried that. That helped a little bit. And then the real thing with a yoke that really helps is actually if I hold the bar up, I really don't have to, because I drive up with it, and so it kind of mitigates some of the tension. My favorite thing to do, though, especially on overhead day, is to do Hatfields. I'll go do Hatfield squats for days, and I just love the shitloads of weight I can throw on the thing. And that's my, I do two exercises, two compounds on my press day. I do overhead presses and I do Hatfields. That's it. Because that taxes my tries, crazy, especially if you got 800 pounds on there. Beats the shit out of my tries, and then overheads, and that's all I gotta do. And so yeah, but no flat bench, no wide grip benching or anything. I'm not benching from rings anymore. I've tried it actually a week ago. I tried it with with an overhead press. I grabbed the rings and I was like, I wonder if I could do it. I wonder if I could just and so I had it sitting right up against my neck, and it was so awkward. But yeah, so
what were the training days? Because the strongman for me is fascinating, right? Because as we were talking over the weekend, it's not, unless you're at a top level where you're only competing twice a year. I mean, some of these guys are competing 10, 15 times per year.
Or more.
Where if it's a power lifter, there's 2 meets per year, there's 16 weeks, you can kind of periodize things out.
Right.
But when powerlifting, you really only need to periodize for one motor ability and 3 different lifts. Right. If you're a football player, you got to, periodize for all different types of motor abilities and so forth. And strongman, you got to periodize over a period of a year, the strength endurance, fucking body weight, cardio.
Yeah.
All these things got to kind of fall into place, and it can't. Some do, but you just can't randomly throw shit against the wall and think that it's going to work very well.
Right.
For some, yes, it will work, but not for long, right? There has to be some kind of strategy to kind of lay this whole thing out.
Right.
What did you find the best strategy for yourself to kind of lay this out over, say, a 12-month period of time?
You're going to hate this because I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I lift whatever I can as much as I can every time I lift.
All right, so let's dig into that, because usually when I hear that and then we talk about it a little bit more, there's more in it than what you think there is.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of psychological type things.
Yeah, there's that, but there is some periodization into the whole thing.
Yeah.
If we go to, World's Strongest Man's over, you just competed.
Yeah.
What do you do the next month after that?
The next month after that is the hardest training of the entire year for me. I'll tell you why. Okay. Sanya, China, first World's Strongest Man they did over there. Jesse Marunde took second to Mariusz Pudzianowski just by a couple of points. The next day, Jesse Marunde woke up and he saw Mariusz hanging out by the pool, just eating garbage and not doing anything. And Jesse went to the gym and trained his ass off. He says, because then I'll have one day on him. Right. I know that every guy that comes back from Worlds is doing the same thing. They're like, oh, this is my deload, this is whatever. Fuck that. If I start first, then next year I'll have that much more on them. Right. And so that's always, that's some 20-year-old shit. But it sticks in my head, when I heard that story, that, when you come home, the first thing you're doing is like, what did I fuck up? How am I going to fix it? Let's get to work, And so that's kind of how I've always done it. I come back from Worlds, I figure out where I boned, and I try to attack those things. The rest of the year, sometimes you get into
now during that time period, though. All right, so if you figure out where you screwed up and you're going to attack those things, then you're going to put less attention on the things that you didn't screw up.
Right.
right? So
Well,
you see where I'm going here.
So I mean, with like the ego lifting, I haven't had a weak press in a long time, and so for me to go into, you know, like sit there and try to like smash overhead presses when I know that I'm going to place, you know, pretty well already in that, like it doesn't make any sense. It's like I know that, you know, I've got some catching up to usually with my pulls, with my deadlifts. You know, I've never been a great deadlift. I've only I think 710 is my best ever. And so with that one, it's usually I come back and it's like I've gotten through, you know, 2 of the 4 pulls in the medley, and I've got to work on that some more. And really, it's just the active engaging, you know, in my mind that I want to take advantage of them, you know, not being on and me, you know, me being on. So
with that example and it being the deadlift, then you put more emphasis on that. How long are you able to keep pushing that before it will start to regress?
Well, now that I'm older, it's a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
It's you know, I still try to get in. I know it's bad. I still try to pull like twice a week, but usually now, I'll rotate things in that will help my deadlift, but not really. So when you're training and you want a good deadlift, it's like, you know, like, yeah, you can train deadlift to have a good deadlift, but you can also have the mindset of, what am I going to do to improve my deadlift? And it's not just deadlift more, you know. It's, the Chinese were like that with weightlifting. It was like, we're going to clean and jerk every day. Every day we're going to clean and jerk. It doesn't work like that, especially when you're 50 years old. And so for me, it's, I try to, when I'm not pulling, I try to do some things that are a little bit more dynamic than pulling, like 200-pound kettlebell swings, or picks, like bag picks. I'll pick up heavy sandbags. I hate picking up sandbags, but I'll do those. But I'm doing things that are kind of like what I'm wanting to improve, you know, but just on like a different plane or a different axis of that. And so I'll rotate out kettlebells with the deadlift, you know, weekly, to make sure to hit a little bit of both, so that I have a little bit of the explosive side of it, but also the actual technical part of the lift. I'm keeping the memory of it in there, and then just grind it into dust.
So with the sandbags, how do you avoid the pacemaker there?
I just go over the right shoulder. Yeah. I've gone over the lefts. The weird one is with like circus dumbbell, because after you tire out the right arm, it's like, well, fuck, dude, all I got left is a left, and then it's like I got the thing right there. And so I've tried doing that, and then the lip of it always grazes the damn thing. So I'm stuck. There are things that are outside of my control, like learning to accept that as an older athlete sucks. But there are things that, like, you know, I can try to work around it, but there are things that just the math does not add up for it.
Yeah, the risk is not worth it.
Yeah. And so, you know, luckily I don't have to do circus dumbbell that much, but you know, like stones, when I pick stones, a lot of guys roll them dead center. You know, they you know, roll it up their torso and load it up. I tend to take it over to the right slightly, and then, you know, it goes a little over my pec. It's a little bit more of a pain in the ass, but I totally mitigate, you know, the contact, you know, the chance to contact that pacer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then with your training, when, not now, but when you were younger, how would you go about training all components of Strongman in 1 week? Okay,
so the tradition has always been a Strongman Sunday. I don't know if you guys do that, but it's always Sunday. We take everything out. It's a whole day thing, and you know, we'll get out there at 8 o'clock in the morning and then pack it up at like 4 o'clock or so. So we'll sit out there. It's the way. It's not, like, in hindsight, the most effective way, you know, because eventually something's gonna, you know, get hit. You know, like at the end of it, this, you know, if you're grinding yoke, your farmers isn't going to be great at the end of the workout or something, you know. But it mimics, you know, it's like doing all the stuff you're going to do in your competition anyway. So if you have 5 events that you want to run through, that's just it. You ask everybody, what are you going to do today? What do you want to do? And it's like, okay, we're going to do this, 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 and this. Like 5 things. And it's like going through a competition day, except running through that competition like 5 times over. Yeah. And so we'll break it all out and then roll it all back in, and then just 1 day a week. Now by myself, sometimes I'll bring in, I still do log. Log is very difficult because it fucking steamrolls right over the thing. But I'll bring that in on an overhead press day instead of just doing a push press. Or I'll find some other thing that is Strongman related to press, or like deadlifting axle instead of a bar. or whatever, or pulling from wagon wheels or something.
Now,
like
is that during the week, or is that part of that event day?
No. On an event day, it's sort of, we just roll
the
out.
events.
It's
Okay.
pure strongman.
So then during the week is when you're doing those other things.
Yeah. So I can swap out anything. It's very modular. Like when you train for it, because there's always an equivalent to anything that you're wanting to do on a barbell. There's something you can do in strongman, and there's always a way that you can kind of hit the thing that you're wanting to accomplish in strongman with another strongman event.
Yeah.
So, there's, you can see just, physically the similarities between a farmer's walk and a yoke or a sandbag and a stone. There's a lot of things that line up. And so taking those is most of my weeks, most of my week of training is training just with standard equipment. I'm training with bars. And then every now and then, especially if I'm prepping for a show, I'll bring the strongman stuff in. And then I'll roll with that, and then I'll pepper my regular training with those strongman movements. I just kind of drop them in. It's like I don't compared to. People ask me all the time, like, "Hey, what should I do for this?" Or like, "How would you program this?" It's like, dude, don't ask me about programming, because like I'm just going to tell you to load up as much as you can and do it as much as you can, and then try to do the same thing the next time you do it. I don't have the patience. I also don't have the mental wherewithal to stay focused on something that's written down and having to follow 5% more this week and then swapping this out with that and whatever else. That's why I keep my workouts so simple. It could be because if I know I have to go in and I have to do 5 or 6 things, or I have 2 compounds and a bunch of accessories, my mind is going to shoot off somewhere in the middle of that, and this workout's going to be 5 hours long.
Yeah, but on the general level, from what you just said, if you're far out from the competition, what you're doing during the week isn't going to be as specific as what it's going to be if you're closer to the competition, because you're going to bring some of the more strongman things in during the week.
Yeah.
As that.
So
we just already now found 2 different phases of training that you're kind of bumping around, with that.
So where you have like a conjugate strongman phase, and then you switch.
Yeah. And then you're choosing your week, I'm going to assume, based upon how the weekend felt.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So if one of the events felt like shit on the weekend, and it wasn't because you were just fatigued and you realize it's not because it was the last thing, it's because you just suck at it, or because you're weak at a certain thing with that, then that's going to get peppered in during that following week or weeks to be able to build that to where it feels the way it's supposed to feel on that Sunday.
Sure. Plug it in, titrate it, whatever.
Yeah, which would be intuitive or instinctive periodization.
Sure.
In a way.
That sounds so cool. I like
Well,
that.
it's essentially what it is. Well, it's
next time they ask.
With all training that's from that strength realm I'm a big advocate of, you got to be able to figure shit out for yourself. You got to learn how to auto-regulate your training. Right. So if something felt great on that strongman Sunday, just fucking phenomenal, you're not going to go pound extra shit for that during the week, because it's going the way you want it to go. It's cool. It's fine. It's the things that don't feel great that you're going to try to build those weaknesses up with. Now, building the intuition to be able to know the difference between those two takes years, time, and focus.
Right.
To be able to know what you're supposed to be feeling. So if we take that as kind of the benchmark, and it is one of those strongman Sundays, then how do you determine which things felt like shit and which ones didn't? Outside of just, it felt hard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's a default, but it can feel hard for a lot of different reasons. Right. So how do you know when it felt hard because it needs to be focused on more, or because there's a muscle group or something that's falling behind?
I think in strongman, it's usually like a stability thing. If I pick up a log and I find that my, the chain of muscles that I'm recruiting from my toes up to my shoulders, that there's something amiss in that, and that I'm not feeling stable in one way or another. If I feel like I'm dumping the bar forwards and it's not a equipment issue, if I feel like my hips are weak, or unstable, then it's okay. Well, next week we're going to be, we're probably going to be squatting deeper. We're going to be, hitting these other things or whatever. Like I sense a weakness or an instability thing that needs to be addressed before that is going to go where I need it to go.
All right. So then for both of you guys, how do you know if it's that or if it is an equipment issue? Because that can be a factor as well.
So usually the equipment we use in our own training, unless we go out somewhere new, is the same. Sometimes it's nice to go somewhere different with different equipment because you get to practice on something new, and sometimes it goes better, sometimes it goes worse. Just because even, for example, if it's a farmer's walk, the handle height being slightly taller could make all the difference in your pickup and how you run after with it. Now, knowing if it's just your body, I guess it comes down to us doing it so often, especially if it's like a weekend, like a Sunday event day where you've done the same events 5 or 6 times. You'll know if you're not hitting a number just because you're probably beat up, or if you're not hitting a number because suddenly there's an issue that's
you'll know.
on that one event.
Like you guys will know, but how would you explain that to somebody that's just kind of getting started?
So, the easiest way to explain it is that I've been doing it 25 years. And so I know, because I know my body, and I know if I change something up and there's a reaction to that change, something that correlates with that, then that's the problem. Just, having done it so many times, I'm tuned into everything on how it's supposed to feel. So if I buy a new pair of lifting shoes, and then I go and I'm gonna try these lifting shoes out. It says log day, and I pick the log up and I go to stand up with it. I'm like, Jesus, this thing is pulling me forward. Then I know that the lift on my the lift on my new shoes is an issue, and either I'm going to adapt to that and be successful with a log, or it's going to continue to be a problem and I need to find something a little bit lower, something like that.
Like I've had training days where I've started with the shoes, didn't feel right, took them off, and if this still doesn't feel right, then I know it's not the shoes.
Yeah.
But if it feels all of a sudden better, then I know it's the shoes. Mm-hmm. So you just keep going on and off. To add to that, probably the best thing for someone new in this is specifically, and Clinton has really taught me this a lot. Go out there, train with someone that has this equipment, get experience on it, because there's no other way to know. You can do any kind of accessories, you can approximate the lift, but unless you actually get your hands on a log or on a sandbag and you practice that lift, you're not going to know what it feels like until you actually do it.
I think that, and also don't muddy up your routine with training gear. Don't jump into it and use the soft belt and the grip shirt and the lifting shoes, and you start throwing all the shit at that, and then all of a sudden it's like, I feel really weird when I lift, and I don't know why. And it's like, well, because you have a bunch of shit on. Now we have to start peeling that away.
Yeah.
To figure out. Start with a good pair of cross trainers. I lift with cross trainers. I'm wearing them right now. I love cross trainers because nowadays, especially with CrossFit, they're built to actually lift stuff. They're not like dad lawn mowing shoes like they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of those, like wrist wraps are basic, They'll start loading up on gear though, because especially when you're starting out, you learn later what to kind of plug in where, but you don't want to muddy the water super quick with that. I guess that's my advice then.
Well, because what I would see that they would do is as you're saying, they put too many variables in there, then it's always changing different variables and they never know what something's really supposed to feel like.
Yeah, like my off-season training now, I've ditched the shoes, the belt, everything that I can. I'm bare bones. There's no deadlift suit. There's no wrist wraps if I can help it. So the bare absolute minimum, I'll work up to whatever I can work up to without anything. Once I'm happy at the state that I'm in, I'll start adding wrist wraps or a thicker belt, or I'll put the deadlift suit on for 4, 5, 6, 8 week block if I need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, just keep it simple to start with.
It is the same. There's also, I had issues before the heart too with putting on too much compression gear and then feeling like I was gonna fucking pass out when I pick something up. So it's like
a multiply power lifter doing strongman.
Yeah, kind of. You sit there and you put the neoprene belt on and the big belt over, and then you got compression stuff underneath it, and then knees, elbows, everything else, and it's like, all right, now I'm about to go pump my blood pressure up to 300 and carry this yoke. And then it's like, wow, I feel really lightheaded. It doesn't feel right. What's going on? It's it's because you've wrapped yourself up in a fucking wetsuit, and and your BP is going high and your body's shutting. Your BP is going too high and your body's shutting down. So, yeah. So I'm like a super minimalist now. You really don't even use a lot of neoprene anymore. But
I can help it too. Same.
Yeah, it's weird. It's one of those things that I remember when sleeves started getting big, and they're like, yeah, Tommy Kono used to cut up his wetsuits and wear knee sleeves, and he was a great weightlifter because of that. And he got to do it forever and stuff. It's one of those things that kind of wish that I'd held off until I was a lot later to even use sleeves. They feel comfortable, you know, they keep you kind of toasty, and that's nice, but it also, it's a false sense of security. One, you're going to do stupid stuff the more gear that you wear, especially as a noob. But two, you just don't need it, you know?
Do you find with a younger strongman coming in, because compression gear, strongman's larger now than it's ever been, right? But also the gear associated with it, for instance, the neoprene belts and the knee sleeves, the elbow sleeves,
the business,
you know, all the accessory items around that have become synonymous with strongman.
Yeah.
So do you find people coming in don't think that they're really doing strongman unless they're wearing all that shit?
Yes.
Yeah. So there have been some amazing advancements in that. So for example, the soft belts, the Spot Ink one, I absolutely love it. Ever since I got my hands on a softer belt, I have not used
Well, there's that,
fake
but then
hard
there's
belt.
also the belt you can put underneath that, which is the whole torso
which I
belt.
tried
Yeah.
and I used it for a while and I loved it, but ultimately I don't need it. The only mandatory piece of equipment I find now that I cannot lift with and it feels naked and uncomfortable is a mouthpiece. By far.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well, what I'm
Like,
wondering though
the
is
moment
if
I don't have one, I'm like, I can't do this.
if the newer ones coming in, because they're watching this online,
Yeah.
and they're seeing all those things. So they done one strongman show. Yeah. Now they love strongman. They're going to do this for forever. Then every event day, they have on every piece of equipment, deadlift suit included, you know, for their whole training. Is that happening?
Definitely. That is happening. And I've seen people do one show or 2-3 trainings and then fully kit out themselves.
Yeah.
Which is great for the business.
Well, it's great for the business, but is it great for the lifter in your opinion?
Probably not, because now all of a sudden it's like they drove one car, they love driving a car fast, they throw the nitrous in, and they still don't know how to drive the car, despite now having a nitrous button in their car.
Yeah. I assume your opinion would be the same with that.
Yeah, it's similar. It's just like anything else. You know, you want to wear Michael Jordan shoes, you know, or that kind of thing. You see your guy out there and you're like, oh, that guy's badass. Like, what's he wearing? Oh, those are cool. I'm going to go look them up online and grab a pair or whatever. And then it's everything. And I think it's ridiculous now because we have grip shorts. We have grip shirts. You have people showing up to shows and it's a little goofy. Sorry to say that. You can tell the guys have been doing it for a while, I think, because their stuff is shit. So that's the guy you want to watch out for. You watch out for the dude that's in his 40s who shows up to the show and he's wearing blue neoprenes.
Yeah, the whole
he has only one knee sleeve. He doesn't know where the other one is.
Yeah.
He's got some Harpix hand glue. Not you know, like that guy is going to be the one that's been doing it for 20 years and probably the one to watch, and not the one that is, you know, kitted from head to toe and swag. It's cool, and I've got, you know, plenty of stuff myself, but you just don't need it, and it's, you know, I think it's counterintuitive in a lot of ways. So
for some people, something like a slight elevation in the heel can make a huge difference just because of the body dynamics, but they wouldn't know that from doing one competition or a handful of training sessions unless they have an extremely talented coach that absolutely sees that right away. But then again, they won't know that until they practice a little bit, get into it, and maybe those shoes will help them. Maybe they do need it.
Yeah. Well, if I'm understanding what you guys are saying, if they're going to do that, one thing should be implemented at a time.
Yes.
You know, slowly.
Sure.
Instead of just throwing everything on at once, because then you don't know. Because if you have a great day, you don't know what created the day. But if it screwed you up, you don't know what screwed you up either.
It's totally, it's, you know, like Clint says, if you leave your workout and you don't know why you had a good workout, then it was a fucking worthless workout.
You wasted it.
Yeah. So, so I think
I'd rather have a bad workout where I know what mistakes I did and what I can improve on than have an absolute great one and wonder, like, what was it like that I did this week, last week, or is it just this month or just this day to day? How can I recreate it? That's wasted. Yeah.
What are some of the other mistakes that you're seeing younger strongmen making?
Drugs, getting into drugs too quick.
Way too quick.
Yeah.
I guess this is powerlifting too, the sport generally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you've, like, I mean, I don't want to be, I like calling out people, Dave. So, but you've had people on the show that got started in the sport at a young year and then blew up, and then were just like, holy crap, and got a ton of attention by young guys who were like, I want to look like that guy. What are they doing? I want to do more of it. And, you know, these days, these young folks who get into the sport, everything is immediate now. Like you can get anything immediately, and nobody wants to wait. And so it I think coincides. The drugs coincide with that type of thought process that like I'll do anything that I can, and I'll get jacked tomorrow. And so you get guys start doing that stuff. And I remember I met a guy. I was at a show in Washington. I was judging a show in Washington, and I met a guy. He said, "Yeah, I had a blood clot and like an embolism like last week, and I've been blasting tren though." And it's like, "How long have you been training, dude?" And he goes, "Oh, I've only been training about 6 months." And it was weird, dude. And I'm going like, you're gonna like kill yourself. You literally, and you're at a show competing right now, and like hoping everything. He's like acting like, I hope I'm okay, and this kind of stuff. This is the dumbest stuff, but they want that glory, and they don't want to
do the work to get it.
Yeah. I mean, they want it immediate. I think they're willing to do some work, but God, they'll take any fucking shortcut you can now to get there. So I think that would be like the big one. That I would think,
sometimes just not sticking it out. There's a lot of young people that jump into it, and just because they are, whether it's genetics or the progress of science and equipment or whatever the hell it is, they're just so far ahead of the curve on everyone else in the sport, especially the people that have been in it for 10, 20, 30 years. Where they'll come in and they're doing it for half a year, and they'll assume that they know every answer better than you because they're now deadlifting more than you in their half a year of experience. And granted, good job, good on you. I'm impressed, but it took me 8 years to get here. I probably know a thing or two about getting here.
Mm-hmm.
With your 6 months of experience, as strong as you are, you're either going to get injured or make mistakes, and why not listen and ask for advice from someone that's been doing it for so long? They probably know, every little corner of the sport that there is to know about it.
Well, the interesting thing about both of those topics, and you've been in this forever, is they're not new. Like if you go back to the 2000s, there were still those people that As soon as they started were just blasting tons of shit, and they never make it to the top. Have you ever seen that happen? Where somebody comes in, even if you go way back then, just started blasting like what you're seeing now and actually made it to the top?
No, I've been long enough to know a lot of dead guys in the sport. Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? So that the practice that we're talking about has been implemented, on smaller scales since the 90s,
mm-hmm.
and not one person that we can think of actually made it because of that. And to the same token, you've also seen people come in that just out of the gate, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Right? How long do they last?
They disappear. There's like
very few of them really. There's some. There's definitely some. But most of them, 8 out of 10, they never last.
Yep.
So history already shows everybody that what we're talking about doesn't work.
Nope.
Well, you get a lot of these guys too. I mean, I could point out many guys at Giants Lives promotions who these guys get up to the point where they can compete for, professionally and make a check, but they never win anything. If they do, they win one every few years, and they're just always injured and just broken and shit. And it's like they went from 0 to 100. Like I know a guy who won his first big show in 2018, and then just nothing after that. He won one big show after that because he was always fucking injured. Just blasting, always injured, never gets to the top, and he's just sort of a gamer. And then, at the point now where it's like the only thing that's left in his life. He doesn't have a job or anything else. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to do good at Strongman, so I've got to figure this out. And the desperation and the other stuff, it gets sad, man.
No, it's interesting because I was asked a question a long time ago at a CrossFit seminar about steroids, and I would politely ask them to never publish it, but they did. And it was like, when do you play the ace card?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a high school football player and you have to start taking shit, you got to play the ace card to be able to start as a high school football player. You're probably not going to play in college. You get what I'm saying? Or maybe it will get you there.
Absolutely.
And now if you're in college and you got to play that there, to be able to start, high school just to be able to start. right? You're probably not going to get there. And now, if you're in high school and you're the starter and you need to play that to be able to go to college, well, maybe you'll get there, but you're probably not going to be able to make it to the pros. Now, if you wait until you're in the NFL and you've got 2 years in, then you play the card, then you're getting an additional 5-6 years on the back end of that, which is millions of dollars, right? So it's kind of strategic as to when you want to play that card. So as what you're saying in Strongman, if a lot of those people would have waited, they probably could have got to that same point, maybe not placed as well, but got to the same point, then played the card, and then instead of being 30th or 17th or bottom of the barrel, they would be at the top of the barrel but last longer, because they're so beat up by the time they actually get to the age where they can express their full potential that they don't have anything left.
I think that less focus is placed on becoming a better athlete. Right? Athleticism is the most important part of any sport, and that you want to improve your general physical preparedness, your ability to do the tasks that you need to do. I think that more people are concerned with, can I lift this number, and what can I take to lift that number, that kind of thing, instead of I'm going to get better at lifting, those things. The case in point, there's guys like Andrew Clayton, for example. Andrew Clayton was a successful heavyweight strongman, and then back down to 105K, 231 pounds, and just technically superior to almost anybody at that weight. And Andrew's not a guy that's brutally strong. He's a guy that just does it better. And so, and that's why he's been so successul.
And he has some great ideas on the way he approaches the technique and the training of it.
Yeah, he's different.
Yeah.
But you have guys like that work on the athleticism aspect of it, and this is why pound for pound they're better than anybody else. The athletes that we had in Clash, for example, if you slapped 50 more pounds on them, they're the best in the world at any weight class. Or guys like John Hack, it's just an incredible powerlifter at 90K, and rolled right over to Strongman and kicked ass immediately. So it's the athleticism really that I think should be focused on. And I think if the heavyweights took the time to become better athletes and to actually drill the movements, become better with the implements, then you're going to have a higher quality competitor, akin to
life and everything,
akin to a Mitch Hooper, or like a Martinez Licis. These are not like your stereotype, giant strongman. We're kind of pulling away from the Brian Shaws and Thor Bjornssons, whose size kind of carries them a long way with that. And now we're getting these guys that look like double-sized CrossFitters, but I think that's the future, physically too.
It's getting there, yeah.
So how does their training differ then from the others?
Well, guys like Mitch are just incredibly intelligent. Mitch has a lot at his disposal to become, or to stay at the top as long as he wants, in a lot of different ways. But he trains very thoughtfully, and is a great athlete, not just a giant guy who can lift a lot of weight. So, but you have the old like thought process of, like, I'm just going to get bigger, I'm just going to get stronger, and then that's going to work out. And it's like, that's really boring strongman, because nobody wants to see a fat guy trudging along with weight. I don't care how much weight it is. Nobody wants to watch that.
It might work for that one event, or the one static event, or
like
two.
Like a squat or something.
That's about it. Yeah.
Whatever. But we had, like, Brian Siders came over from powerlifting years ago and tried doing the Arnold, and it was just like, nothing happened. Great powerlifter, not a great strongman. You can't think that way. You've got to be like, powerlifter is powerlifting, and strongman it's everything. Like, you have to, it's everything.
Yeah, to add on to the athleticism part, even for myself, and notice the more athleticism I have, the more capacity for extra work I have during the week. So yes, I can put in more work if I need to get that one lift better. I don't just need to focus on the one lift. So
when you're in the heavier class and you're trying to push that weight up, your mid 350s, I mean, this becomes, a conundrum, right? So because you push the weight up too fast, you're going to lose that, right?
How so? What do you mean?
If your body weight goes up, too fast, then you're going to begin to lose the athleticism because of the mobility and all the other stuff.
My max will go up and my reps will go down. 100%. It happens every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you keep the athleticism as you get the weight up, or do you not need to pull the weight up? Because that becomes, for you, that's another thing too. I mean, you could easily be 50 more, well, not easily, but you could be 50 pounds more, right?
God.
Some events you would do way better at, but you're going to set for weight up. So you got to balance this, and you had to balance that at the heavier weights too,
right?
Body weight. So how do you balance that? Is it based upon the event days and how much you're sucking air? Because all the eating is a whole second part of this whole thing we haven't gotten into yet.
Right.
So I don't know about you. For me, like, I do the work that sucks. Like the other day, you saw me. I was doing burpees at 400 pounds. Yeah. Like, it sucks. It's not great, but you got to do it.
I do interval training. Interval training is my jam. I do it twice a week. I do two heavy days a week and then 2 interval trainings, and it lets me increases my output while testing my mental fortitude. By the time I get to like the 7th or 8th set of the intervals, I want to fucking die. And so there's a part of the game that is that it's like keep going, and so it's a way that I can kind of train both the cardio, the mental toughness part of it, and I think the cardio is really neglected. I mean, even in powerlifting, I think guys should be doing more cardio just for your health. And it gets a bad name. People are like, fuck cardio, I don't want to whatever. But yeah.
Especially them being out of breath in between sets the whole time.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, like, you could just do a little bit of cardio and you wouldn't be out of breath. Just that alone, even.
Oh, I agree with that with the powerlifting for sure, especially if they're doing sets of triples and it's like they got 3 sets of 3 heavy on the squat and they look like they're going to die before they're over. It's like what the fuck, man?
I like 20s. 20s is like and so, that's this has always been my thing. But and then by the end of it, it's like I'm cyanotic, I'm blue. I remember at my first Worlds, I got done with a medley event, and I remember looking down at my arm, and my like my fingertips were blue because I was so oxygen depleted, and then I watched Clint go until he passed out. I watched Clint just keep going until he was literally like flat on his back. But guy's the best. But yeah, I took a picture of myself in the hotel room when I got back, and I was like, dude, you look like shit. That's the problem here. You could have been top 10 today if you were in better shape. And it wasn't in good shape. I was bull strong. But I went back home, and it was, I'm like, all right, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. And, I think, there's no point to just having weight for the sake of weight. Mass moves mass. Yeah, that's great. But just, being big for the sake of being big is stupid. How much weight, you got to figure out how much weight do you need to accomplish the task that you're trying to accomplish, and how much weight is going to be too much to where it starts to impede that.
Yeah, I get that, right? But you're in a sport where if somebody's your height and they're 310 pounds, what they're all being told.
They got to get bigger.
That they got to get bigger, they got to gain weight. So it sounds like what you're saying is they got to have the same passion for that hard endurance work or interval work that they have for the heavy single work.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
It would be a lot more fun to slap some weight on the deadlift and just do sets of singles. But
yeah.
I think plyo, too. That's another one that's neglected a lot. You don't see a lot of guys doing plyo anymore, and that used to be a thing back in the day. If you're explosive off of your feet, then you're gonna do really well in strongman.
It carries over to absolutely.
Yeah. So when you say that, what do you mean exactly by plyos? Because that's there could be 100 different things.
Yeah, and there are like 100 different things that you can explore. And so it's just finding something and doing it ballistically. If you're slamming balls, if you're jumping boxes, if you're doing broad jumps or long jumps, standing long jumps, things like that. Yeah. Sprinting, I love sprinting. Yeah. It's kind of pulling yourself out of that box that you're in, training over here, and then doing some of those other things that's going to increase your athleticism, maybe like less conventional for the sport that you're engaged in. So I mean, I come up with crap all the time. I'm super like legit diagnosed ADD, and I keep it very simple. But there are some days where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna do sprints. I'm just gonna do like 40s or 100s or whatever. I'm gonna go out to the track. I'm just gonna go shred or put my cleats on and go run in the grass because it hurts more. There's some. I mean, like it's endless. I mean, you just find something and do it ballistically. You do anything. I mean, my plyo, my overheads are plyo. My overhead presses are like a whole body movement that, you know, it's just I'm constant time under tension, lots of, you know, like movement, head to toe, explosiveness until I can't move anymore. And I think it helps to take the edge off, you know, with some other things. But it's just, you know, if you want to do that, I'm not the tight controlled, you know, lifting type. I've never been that way. It'd probably make a terrible power lifter. So I like to, you know, my squats are more ballistic and plyometric. You know, they're ass to the grass and then, you know, popping back up real high. My presses are the same way. Everything I do is kind of like that because everything in our sport's like that. Yeah. You know, there's nothing that isn't explosive. Except
overhead pressing, loading, shouldering.
Yoke is just suck.
But if you can move explosively off the spot with your feet.
Yeah, if you pop off. Yeah, your start is a big one.
So just running, being able to move fast with that weight and catching yourself, that's just explosive driving into the ground with your feet just to keep the weight from
it is. And then you get to the point though where you're just trying to, like, you know,
catch up with the momentum.
Just trying to get forward, and it's like I'm gonna sit on my hips each step trying to, you know, inch forward with it. Because a lot of it is, I guess, inherently like that. But
I mean, there's a reason a lot of the best strongman athletes are usually athletes that were in some other sport like basketball or rugby or football or something similar to that.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they've all had that explosive training, that the sudden stop, change direction, good tendons, good mobility, good athleticism, good cardio, good GPP, all of that in one big package, and then you make them stronger. That's your perfect recipe for a strongman.
Well, your best strongmen are people that are good athletes, period. So if they're a good athlete in anything, I mean, Eddie Hall was a championship swimmer before, you know, he got into it. Both Thor and Brian were basketball players. And, I mean, I've known like a ton of others. I know like wrestlers that have been really good, a couple of football players, not as many football players as you would think though. And just, I think
maybe in the older strongmen.
Yeah.
There were more football players.
Yeah. But I think, if you're coming from any kind of a sport, I haven't seen anybody from like tennis or anything. Yeah,
there were some really good throwers.
Yeah, so you had guys like Jeff Caves who recently passed away. Jeff was, you know, an Olympic thrower. But you know, like I think that the quintessential for me is like Mariusz Pudzianowski. Mariusz was like the best athlete. You know, like he was not the biggest, not the strongest, and he beat everybody's ass. You know?
So he's what Hooper and others are now.
Probably, yeah. Except, you know, Hooper's got more height, and but you know, Mariusz was a martial artist, and Mariusz was one of those guys who did a lot of different sports and was good at all of them, and then, you know, went over to strongman. It's kind of like me, or like a lot of the other guys.
Found one that he enjoys. Yeah.
You know, it's just like I'm going to do good at that. So I think it's just being a great athlete. Like you can come over. Like I said, I haven't seen anybody from tennis. But I mean, I think you come up from a lot of sports and really, you know, if you have that mindset and you're used to attacking things, you'd probably be good at strongman.
If it helps, I played tennis when I was younger.
Did it?
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. So there you go. Now you know someone from tennis.
Well, with that, you just kind of touched on it. Two things kind of come with that: the athleticism, you know, and the training of the athleticism, right? Because football practice or all the basketball practice, all the stuff that they're doing is kind of that high interval type training that comes with those sports.
Sure.
So that athleticism comes with them, and the knowing how to train for that comes with them, and knowing how and understanding what it feels like, you know, to do 40-40s and, you know, shit like that. But the mindset also comes with that too. You know, that competitive mindset that comes as well.
Being able to force yourself to do the things that suck, but you know you have to do.
Well, yeah, that would be the mindset, is the delayed gratification, right? Because from those sports, there's whole seasons. Yep. You know, so they're not just getting ready for the one game, they got to get ready for the whole thing. And then all the stuff they have to do in the off season is to prepare for the end season. So there's I don't want to say inbred, but a trained, you know, mindset that comes with that, you know, as well. So when it comes to strongman, how much is that mindset that comes from that? How important does that play into that? Because there is, you know, those that, because take your training, for instance, just like, fuck it, I'm just going to go heavy as fuck.
I'm sorry, it's not better than that, man.
Yeah, it is, though, because we already kind of broke it down. There is more going on with that. It's just under the disguise of being what I would call auto-regulated, which is to me, the epitome of all strength sports is being able to understand that.
Okay.
Because if you were just blindly doing whatever the fuck it was, which you're not, then you wouldn't have got to where you are, right? Because you would be doing the same movements every week and just doing them really hard all the time, and then never changing them.
So I like that. So right now I'm instinctive auto-regulating something. It sounds really important. I'm gonna like.
Well, it is, because it's. I'll put it in a simple context, where if it's a power. Let's say go back to when I'm at Westside and it's a max effort day, right? Everybody in there is maxing out on the same exercise. So first off, you got to determine what the exercise is going to be, right? Because you don't know going in,
right?
You know, so you're like, as a group, trying to determine, and half the guys are like, fuck no, we're not doing this because my back feels like shit from what we did on Friday. So that everybody's like, nope, fuck that. Where back's trash, we got to do something else. So then you decide on what that is. Then how many times you use the bar before you start putting weights on is all determined by does the bar actually feel like the bar, or does it feel like fucking 200 pounds?
Yeah.
It feels like 200 pounds. I'm going to take it again. Right. And then so you're making all these micro decisions.
Gotcha.
And then as you start working up and say you get the 60% range, that knee pain just not stopping. Then you got to decide, do I stay with it? Do I wrap it? Do I just do 5s today? Or do I say, fuck it? I mean, you're making all these decisions.
Sure.
And the longer you're in it, the more intelligent those decisions become.
Sure.
Like if it was supposed to be a max triple, but shit just didn't feel right, whatever it was going to be, or I'm sorry, a max single, things just aren't feeling it. There's at a certain point, 80% you realize I'm not breaking a PR today. So I'm not going to push for that. Maybe I'm just going to have my best double or my best triple. So there's a lot of processing going on.
So it's using the scientific method for powerlifting.
But yeah, and you're doing the same thing with your accessories and the Strongman and so forth. And after that first movement, if it's a video game and you got this energy bar, right? You want to go into the game with 100, but you never do, right? Because there's systemic fatigue.
Sure.
So you're like at 70. Now after the first exercise, you got 40 left, right? Then you're like, okay, cool, I'll do 1 or 2 more things. Then you drain it all the way down. Sometimes you might have 10 left. You're like, fuck it, I'm doing abs and getting the fuck out of here, right? So sometimes you got even more left, right? And you're like, well, fuck it. This went really well. I'm going to do a back offset for fucking 20 reps on the squat because I feel good. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
or you'll save the 10% and start with 90% the next day.
Yeah, and this is one of the hardest things to teach younger lifters that are coming up through any of these strength sports, but you all do it. You know what I'm saying? You learn it by trial and error, because there's a couple times where you make the wrong decision.
Sure.
Right? And you're like, ah, shit, now my knee's fucked up for a month.
Yeah.
Or you wake up the next day and instead of being hit by a truck, you feel like you got hit by a fucking semi and a train and everything else, and you can't move getting out of bed.
Clint explains it, like either how big was the bus, or was it a bus or a train?
Yeah, it was a fucking train. And you're like, well, I mean, maybe you don't change that, but you're going to go into Wednesday, the day, the next training day, like, man, I got hit by a fucking train. Either I'm just going to do this one thing real hard, or you sauna, steam, whatever the fuck you got to do to be able to get ready. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah, I know.
That's all in there. And if it's not in there and it's just like, nope, these are the 5 exercises that are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, fuck it, I'm doing it no matter what. You're just...
So autoregulation is basically the scientific name for everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Pretty much. Well, yeah. Well, no, it's everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, but then they know how to counter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they all have a lot of people just get punched in the face, but always get punched in the face and then never win anything because they don't figure this shit out.
Right.
So in Strongman, it just becomes more complex because your base is that the event day. For you, that base is that event day that helps set the stage for what the metrics are going to be able to move forward.
Sure.
Right? Where if it's a power lifter, it's their squat, bench, and deadlift. If it's a conjugate person, it's their max effort exercise. Whatever it is, it's kind of figuring out what that base is, and then basing all the decisions on, is that actually going where it needs to go?
Right.
In a non-egotistical way, right? Because, yeah, you want your good stuff to become better, but if your weak stuff doesn't become better, especially in Strongman, then you win one event and you suck at all the other ones.
Right, right.
Yeah,
so. I think in a way, like I said, the event day becomes a way to sort of to kind of test, to kind of run like a like do a dry run of a competition or whatever. When you get closer, that's what your event day does become. You know, it's your dry run in the show that you're aiming for. But it's to see what the work that week has accomplished, and then when you get to there, let's see what we can do now, and then adjust for the next week.
Yeah.
So auto-regulating is a good way to.
Now, have you always on the event days trained with a group of people?
Right now, I'm not. I don't. I think there's like 2 people near me that like near me, like within a couple hours that would actually do strongman. But for the most part, no. In the beginning, I did. In the beginning, I trained with the group. It's the best way to go. Is to always train with the crew. It's safer. It's a lot better when you have to move plates around and crap around. You're not doing it all yourself, and it it just gives you more opportunity to bounce stuff off each other and
Something
learn.
to learn from someone.
Yeah.
So that's the way to do it. Find a crew and get in with them. Be humble, and just do what you can. But so I started out that way. I had a couple of good crews, and now lately I just train with myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now with the crew aspect, I'm a strong proponent of that, just because there's a lot of things that they're not going to learn on the internet. No. Especially strongman wise with technique and so forth.
Right.
And it's worth traveling, however long you have to travel, even if it's once a month, to be able to have that put in there. But there's also the component of you don't always want to do it, especially the longer you've been doing it.
Right.
It's not like, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to going out there for fucking 5 hours and destroying myself. If there's a crew, then all you need to do is just get there. Yeah. And then it will change things and pull it all up. Where it becomes challenging to when you don't have that crew. So then how do you navigate that if you don't, those days that you really don't want to do it and it's just you, how do you navigate that?
Just make your kids come out and move the plates for you.
I'm speaking more the effort part than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where discipline comes in. And there's no...
You don't have a choice.
Yeah, there's no great athletes out there that aren't disciplined to some extent. So you just suck it up. I think because that's the situation I'm in now. And, the closer I get to a show, the more strongman I'm doing. And then after the show, tends to be like more of just grinding under a bar that I'm doing until the next show when I'm increasing the amount of strongman, because as great as it is to have a sharp blade, the sharpest blades are also the most brittle, and so the sharper you get, the more likely you are to to damaging or breaking, and so I try to be. Maybe I am a little bit more intuitive than
you are. That's what I told you from the start.
When you get to those times when you got the show coming, I think the fact that you're going to be heading off to that big show or whatever it is, that is pretty motivating too. Mm-hmm. It's like I want to do well, or I don't want to suck, or I don't want to eat shit in front of my friends or whatever. There's a lot of other things that positively or negatively motivate you to wanting to do that, including just showing up. There's guys that will be like, hey man, how's your training going? They're shooting you texts and stuff. Hey, watch this, what I did today. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, you're really killing it. God damn it, I got to do something too. And so if you can't find the inspiration or the discipline in yourself, then you get it from the people around you. I still have a guy I haven't competed with in like 3 years, and he still sends me training videos randomly on Instagram, and it's like, this is what I'm doing. It's like, oh, it's awesome, man. I'm like, fuck, man, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing that. I haven't done, farmer's walk in like 3 months or whatever. I got to get out and do farmers. But so there's always a place that you can find that, and it sucks. Like, I think the worst part of strongman, especially for yourself, is moving everything. Yeah. It's like, because once you're done beating your ass, then it's like, you've got to like bring it all back in.
Put it under the shed or whatever it is, unload it.
It's like those plates never feel heavier than at the end, and you're just, but it's a lot.
Your forearms cramping and your elbows hurt.
No, I can imagine that, because part of me would think, you know what, fuck it, I'll just get it tomorrow. But then you think tomorrow I'm going to feel like I got beat up by a truck. Yeah. And it's going to be way worse.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than coming into a training session and then knowing that you have to undo all that and put stuff away and tidy it up just to start your training session. So yeah, you might as well just clean that up.
So that is the worst part of it. I don't think getting out there taking the stuff out, you're fresh when you take it out. It's like, all right, I'm going to do some strongman today. You know, my neighbor's going to be looking at me, and their, you know, wives are going to be checking me out. I feel like a badass. This is awesome. And then at the end of it, you're just like, and I've got to move all this crap in. You look like a sad sack, and you just, you know, like throwing your crap in there, and like, I'll fix it later. So anybody to steal it. But yeah. So that's what I think about motivation.
Also, some of the younger guys that buy all that gear, they're the same guys that will not help you put the plates away when they come out to train with you. So
yeah, I've had to school some people about that. Like, nah,
that is
yeah, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
So the sit back,
and they have all the extra support.
Yeah,
like all their joints have been heated the whole time.
Yeah,
like,
they've been wearing a belt and a suit the whole time.
They should be more fresh, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then you just tell it you're not doing the extra work of putting the plates away. You could be stronger just if you put the plates away for me.
Well, that becomes part of the conditioning then.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, if you got to haul 20 plates in and out, you know, of a shed or a garage and take them 50 yards, that's work right there in itself, which sucks.
And then you run with the yoke, I'd say it was 800 or 1,000 pounds or whatever. And then, like, do you really want to drag all those plates back? Or do you want to try walk back with the yoke one more time just to bring it closer to where you can unload all the plates? So you get that extra run in also, and it all starts building up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that reminds me of when I used to wrestle. I'm going way back. When I would go out running, I would purposely just run like as far as I could.
Yeah.
And because
now
I
you
knew
have to come back.
I got to come back, right? So I'm either going to run back or walk back, but either way, I'm bucked by the time I get there, which to me, I like to do that more than running around a track because you can just walk across the track.
So I do that exact thing with my rucking now, where I'll load up the backpack and like go up at the mountain, and I'll keep going, not until a certain point, but like I'm tired, all right? And I'll keep going until that point because now I don't have a choice. I have to walk back. Yeah. Like whether I'm tired or not, I have to take the backpack back with me with all the weights, and there's no way about it.
That moment.
What does that backpack look like, dude? You are like, you've got a couple of backpacks on you.
I've had it up to 2 plates.
Okay. Yeah, that's respectable.
Yeah. It's solid for like 5 to 8 miles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was rough. Like uphill. So
I bought one of those for my kid, but it's like a 20-pound plate. I just can't imagine you sitting there with a 20-pound plate feeling all good about yourself.
It doesn't feel good the first few times.
No, I'm 90
sure.
pounds. You must be miserable.
No, it's miserable. So you got what? I've worked up to on almost 480, 490 pounds total on the ruck.
Yeah.
Like including my body weight. So
yeah.
So that builds a lot of GPP. So when I take that off, I'm like, oh, I could jump, I can run. This is great. Life does not suck once the backpack is off.
Yeah, that's brutal.
So as you've seen Strongman increase, what are some of the things that you like and that you don't like about the popularity that it's gone under since you started?
Strongman has got more popular. I think I want to say some stuff that's going to piss people off. So I think that the entitlement with the athletes is out of control. I think that there's a lot of people out there that think that they're worth more as an athlete than they are. This whole push for exorbitant, not any pay, but exorbitant pay for athletes that don't generate a dime for any production or anything is ridiculous. I got people who won't show up to shows or bitch about shows if they're not getting paid $10,000. That have no clue, one, about how to run a show, how to stump for sponsors, or any of the backside stuff that you have to do these things. And the it's like look, just because you're blasting $50,000 a year into your ass a year doesn't mean that you're worth a $50,000 payday. That's not how it works. The sport is as popular as it is, and it's going to generate as much money as it does for the promoter, and you deserve a part of that as a professional athlete. But don't act like it's you deserve an NFL payday or something. There's a select few of 6-figure, 7-figure athletes in the world. You got Shaw, you got Eddie, Thor. There's a few heavyweights that do it. It's real tough to do it as a lightweight, very tough to do as a female, which is a fucking shame, because those women are the most marketable thing that we have in the sport.
And it is thankfully getting better, but still a long way to go.
The women deserve more. And I mean, I can explain that in depth even, but the women are the ones that are getting screwed, not the 231 or the 90Ks or the 80Ks or anything like that. You know, it's the return. Like, what are you bringing to the production that makes you think that it's, you know, worth that much? Most people don't. You know, then you have
the same person that expects a 50K payout is the person sitting in the corner and not even talking to the fans or the sponsors, or, you know, getting out of their way to interact with the event.
Yeah, engaging. I had a little, like, just a short speech, you know, before the last big show that I promoted, and, you know, we shot it live on ESPN, and I let the athletes know, look, I'm expecting more. I want to see some emotion. I want to see you go out there, and I want you to be entertaining. Okay, it's great to watch somebody do something that's athletically cool. You know, it's cool to watch somebody lift something heavy or do something that is uncommon in anybody's regular day life. But I'm trying to sell this. I'm trying to sell the athletes and the sport as entertaining, like it was in the old days when you had guys like Louis Cyr who were going out and doing exhibitions for big bucks. Those guys back in the day were A-list celebrities. They're making fat money. And that, I think, is what's missing from the sport, and I think it has a lot to do with the mindset of the athletes. I had one athlete, I had a World's Strongest Man winner, come up to me after that, you know, and he told me, you can't ask them to do that. These are all introverts. I said, then they're not going to be successful introverts, because people want to be entertained. They don't care how much you can lift. They want to watch you, like, they want to be entertained by it, you know. And so, you know, if you can do both, that's what makes the difference. That's why Eddie Hall, who hasn't, you know, been in a freaking competition and you know, got at least 5 years, has 5 million Instagram followers, because the guy is entertaining.
He has a movie role, and
he's doing all sorts of other stuff. You know, the sport needs to groom better entertainers, you know, and I get that a lot of people, because a lot of us, all of us, I would even say like 90+% of us get into the sport because we've got some drama in our past that we're trying to run from. You know, we're trying to beat down that boogeyman. We're going to get bigger and stronger, and we're going to put that part of us to rest while we become a badass. And, you know, but if you're talking about making a career out of it, you're talking about making money, that's a whole different thing. You know, you've got to do extra. It's not the
be more than just an athlete.
Yeah.
Be an entertainer.
So, and, you know, that's where, you know, it's kind of where the next thing where I'm going with the sport is, but, you know, is trying to bring the entertainment aspect to that. I mean, I can tell you from numbers, I've gotten numbers back from ESPN on my shows that will tell you that, like, my biggest crowds are women over the age of 30 and under the age of 45. I think it was. Those are the people that are watching Strongman. I think I've heard similar numbers from World's Strongest Man. Those are the people tuning in. They're middle-aged women, older women, you know, and there's, you know, what older women want to see when they tune in. They want to see girls kicking ass, right? They want to see good-looking guys lifting weights, but they want to see drama, Dave. You know, they want to be entertained. They want to, like, get into it. So, you know, I think I would like to see, you know, and Ilya and I have talked about, you know, some things with that, but I would like to see the sport pivot on that and start to emphasize the dramatic aspects of the sport and the athletes. Is if we build on those characters, and we build on that, you know, that facet of the entertainment, I think that's where the money is. You remember MMA? Back when it was like, yeah, I know a guy that watches UFC. He's got the videotapes. We're going to go over to his house and watch UFC 1, you know, and hoist and blah, blah, blah. And it was, like, cool, you know, like, it was cool to watch, you know, like a sumo wrestler going against a savate guy, a jiu-jitsu guy going against a judoka and whatever. Those were fun, you know, but it wasn't shit until Spike and the UFC partnered to do the Ultimate Fighter, right? And then you had drama. And then you had, there's this whole other side of these athletes, you know, and fighters are at least as dramatic as strength athletes. There's this whole other side of them. And, you know, and then it culminated with this amazing fight between Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. That was like one of the greatest fights in history. And then it was sold. It was like, boom, Strongman could do that.
Yeah.
Strongman can do that. It takes, a little investment, a little bit of time, and some buy-in from the athletes. Convince them, hey, look, I think this is the way. And for people to actually just, to kind of follow suit with that and not think that they fucking know everything or that they're entitled to some other shit, and to follow along on that trip and, bring that to the masses, bring the personalities and the athleticism and the drama, and then the grind. When people see like what you've got to do to get to the show, bring all that to them. That's what I think is missing right now.
Well, there's a reason wrestling like the WWE is so good, even though everyone knows that the fighting, as athletic as it is not that real, but the drama around it is what brings in everyone. So
yeah,
and it's scripted to some degree. So yeah,
it's dramatic athleticism.
Yeah,
Is what it is. There's no sport to it, 'cause it's not. There's nobody's competing for anything. It's scripted, dramatic athleticism. But yeah, it's worth billions of dollars because it's interesting.
And everyone gets a payout based on how entertaining they are.
And everybody knows it too. Everybody knows that the drama is just manufactured and stuff. But like, it's not for us.
Yeah.
Like it is. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some shit over the years. That would have been amazing on camera.
Yeah.
But it was a different time.
Well, I think there's a difference though too, where if, say we go with Tyson and Jake Paul, right? I mean, take that fight for whatever it was, but you have a lot of build up. You have personalities that are through the roof.
Right.
So there's a reason why the stream on Netflix was shitty, right? It's because a billion fucking people are watching this whole thing, where the drama between those guys that were played out, do any of us think that was real? Behind cameras, they're probably fucking friends and all this other kind of stuff. Or if one of them says something and it sparks them just a little bit, they're going to let it go, within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And strength world, sometimes that's not the case. If you say something against him, but you're doing it just to build drama, right? And that's the point of the whole thing. He may be so butthurt about that for the next 2 years, not understanding that that's what that was, right? So everybody has to be on the same coin with all that, because there's a place where you can take it, but then there's taking it too far, right? And that's going to happen. Like if you're trying to build drama and shit like that, people are going to take things too far, but I don't know if it's intentional when they do that, right? It's just they're in their head, they're just fucking going, and then boom, there it goes. But then the other guy is so pissed off about it that it becomes this big issue. It's like, fuck you, I'm never going to compete in your show again, da 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 da, right? Not realizing that this is all part of the show. If you want to fire back, just fire back harder, and then at the end of the day, have a beer when it's over. You all made money.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's for the greater good of everybody, and recognizing that your athletic ability is just part of that, and that there's a story to tell for everybody, and I really want to do that. That's what we're planning right now. So I think I guess getting them to get out of their own heads about that though, and not thinking that people are going to be more entertained because I put 5 pounds on my overhead press. No, they're going to be more entertained when you guys are screaming at each other or pissed off about something, that's happening on the day to day or whatever. So really, I want to put that on camera and then give it to the public and then let them decide how much those strongmen are worth. That's the way to do it. This is the last thing left. We've gone from backyard shows to, the Royal Albert Hall with Giants Live. We've done the biggest things that we can possibly do in strongman. Right? They've all been done, but strongman is not growing. I mean, it's becoming more popular online and things like that, but it is what it is. It's like, where do you go from here? And, there's no more sponsorship, engaging mainstream sponsors too. Like there's every show, it seems like nowadays is sponsored by Rain, sponsored by, like an energy drink of some sort or whatever, but it never how come nobody's gotten Nike? How come nobody's ever gone for anybody that's got some juice and apparel or has some like juice and equipment or wearable tech? That's another one. And I don't think that people are kind of sitting on their ass and engaging the same old sponsors instead of doing the work, and instead of actually reaching out, setting meetings to talk to the people at Polar about why their wearable technology would be a great idea to market as part of a strongman show. They're calling up like Cerberus, who sponsors everybody in every show, and saying like, hey, can you send us some sandbags, right? And your sandbags, while great, Cal and everybody at Cerberus, I love your sandbags, but while great, that's not going to make any money for the athletes, right? And so,
or even for Cerberus at this point.
Yeah, and that's on the other end of that. There has to be an ROI for the company to make it worth putting the money out there.
It's sort of become ubiquitous at the point, like you expect to see it there. And I've talked to them personally about it before. It's like, you're always going to be there. It's just a thing. But
no, but for the mainstream, right? So if say I was to sponsor, I've never sponsored an event that I've had a positive ROI. Zero.
Sure.
Right? Never. It just doesn't happen.
You know why though? Because nobody watches this shit.
Yeah.
Right. You need to have it. You need to put it in front of the faces of the general public.
Yeah, but from what you said, if we peel this back,
right,
if the people that are watching it are the 33-year-old females that are looking for drama, they're not looking to buy fucking sandbags.
Sure. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it's the ROI is going to be on who the demographic is that's actually watching this.
Right.
And that's those companies that need to know what that demographic is to be able to have that ROI.
Those women are looking to buy apparel, though.
Yes.
And so knowing your audience, and then marketing to them. We still have a shit ton of men and younger guys, especially in the 18 to 25 range, that watch the shows too. And those are the ones that like they've seen powerlifting, or they've heard, or they did a bench press competition in high school or something like that, but they left it at that. Maybe, a lot of people, I don't even think know that strongman exists.
Yeah.
We used to say strongman back in the day, and they thought it was a tough man competition, those old boxing shows, they didn't know what the heck it was when I say strongman. But, if you put this in front of the mainstream, kind of like we used to do with ESPN broadcasting World's Strongest Man back in the day.
On Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Which is a huge audience.
Yeah, and then now it's a little different with the I think CBS owns that. But but you get in front of that audience. Clash, for example, I think we went out to like 69 million people, just regular people. There's like a couple thousand people from Strongman watching it, but my audience isn't that. My audience aren't Strongman fans. My audience is the people that don't know. They're the ones like trudging on the treadmill at the gym who happen to, they're flipping through it and then, holy shit, what the hell's going on? And they're watching it. And those are the ones that I'm trying to sell to.
Yeah.
And so, and that's where
well, see, that's also where the competitors need to understand that.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're trying to sell to who they train with.
Right.
And that's not the demographic that you're trying to get in front of.
It's very true.
Right. Yeah. So that's a huge point.
Yeah. It's a microcosm. It's smaller than that, whatever that is. It's, 1,000 people or, whatever, as opposed to, 100 million people. And there's no money in 1,000 people. There's no ROI depending on, there's no money in anything. You could throw $1,000 at my show and air it to 1,000 people, and you're not going to make $1,000 from those 1,000 people. You might have 5 or 10 people that go over there and do something. I can't do anything with that. The best thing that I can do is put it in front of people that don't know what the hell they're seeing, but know that it's amazing.
Yes.
And then, like I said, sort of adding the other things that we know engages that audience, the drama and some of the other things. That's the future of the sport.
No, but you make a big point with, well, let's stay with that $1,000 thing, because if a company gives $1,000 back, they're losing money. Right. They're going to need at least $4,000 back, because, if I'm buying and reselling product, I have margins. Right. So I got to go off the gross margin. So 4 times return on an ROI is not the greatest ROI. Usually it's like, no, I'm not going to mess with all that.
Right.
So now when the audience is way more than that, then the potential ROI increases significantly, to where I think we circle back to the athletes think that you're trying to market to the people that they train with.
Right.
Which is first off, they already have all the shit.
Right.
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
right. So they're already. So what are they going to buy? You know,
So
so
if I'm
they,
going to watch a competition,
yeah,
I'm not gonna
they
go
already
get
already have
another
it, right?
Sunbag
So
from
they're
Cerberus.
they're good. Yeah, exactly, right? They already have all the shit, especially after doing it for many years. They already have all that. But when it's that other demographic that's there, but then the marketers, which are actually your athletes, which they're not putting that together.
Right.
They're the product. Right.
So
the product.
interestingly,
Yeah.
This
yeah.
is where I've had the most success this year, and going forward into the next year, I am actually looking at these brands that will market to our 100 million viewers that are normal, regular people. They're not athletes. They don't care about the next mouthpiece, or they don't care about the sandbags as much as I'd love them to care about. They don't. But they
Yeah.
will care about the insurance or a beer.
Exactly.
Or
And this is what I'm
the
saying.
cars.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot more success with that recently.
Of course.
And even if we're talking pure numbers as marketing, I mean, if we're looking at the statistics, we're talking it costs anywhere between $5 to $8 per thousand impressions, people, to put up a billboard. Right, it will cost you $10 to $15 per thousand impressions to put an ad in the newspaper. If we're talking putting out a strongman show on TV to 100 million viewers, you can get a cost of under $1 per thousand people. So, as a marketing point for companies that have the budget, that want to be marketed to a big population, there is no better choice than a strongman show. But we need to make it more interesting for the people to actually want to watch this. So that's where it comes down to.
Well, the other end of it too is what your sponsor is. So, Dave, like, you sell a lot to powerlifters, right? But your bread and butter is institutional
Actually, it's
sales.
not. It's like
I was
if I look at the database of open powerlifting and compare that to our actual sales, it's less than 5%.
okay.
Right,
The place I was going to is like
Yeah.
the bulk of your sales is institutional, though. Like,
Yes,
Is like you're setting gyms up at
half of
schools
it.
and
It's
things
just
like
people
that.
who like to train hard. Right. That's it. You know.
So how do you target your ad spend? How do you target your marketing to a demographic like that?
It's educational. So it's all content marketing.
So all outside sales, just people just
yeah.
busting ass
And
reaching out.
it's because we put so much investment into that, we don't have the investment to put into paid ads or anything else.
Right.
Because all the eggs are in one basket.
Sure.
You know, from that standpoint. But if it is the paid ads, you know, then it will be. If it's Google ads or something like that, then the 4 ROI isn't even close to what we need, because I got to look at something called CAC,
Right.
which is what the actual return on what the profit return is.
Right.
You know, then that becomes way higher, because in retail there's a way lower margin.
Right.
So, but to kind of illustrate, I think what we're talking about, if we're to look at who Brian Shaw probably has the largest YouTube, right, out of all the strongmen.
Maybe Eddie.
Active strongman.
Active strongman.
Eddie still has the top.
Yeah.
As far as followers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, take what he would make on Google AdSense. Right. Those are ads that Google's just placing that they think is going to do the best on the Google AdSense. Take what he makes there and then compare that to what he makes in, say, his own product sales.
Right.
The AdSense is probably, I'm going to guess, is way higher.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And why? Right? Because this is exactly what we're talking about. Because the people that are watching all those things and those companies are selling the generalized products that everybody, you know what I'm saying? They're not running ads for fucking Cerberus, you know, every 4 minutes on the Google ads. I don't even know what the ads are, but it's probably the insurance, you know, whatever it's going to be that demographic's actually following, because it's such a larger demographic.
Right.
And then they keep pushing those ads, and he keeps getting paid the return for those ads because they have a fucking return. You see what I'm saying? Because it fits that one demographic. And he doesn't know it, and anybody with a large YouTube following doesn't know it, because they really don't know. They just know what they're getting paid. You know, they know the return on that ad spend, you know, just from the content they put out. YouTube knows it, or Google that's placing the ads. They know that, right? So basically what you're saying is the same thing. It's just happening on network TV or wherever it's going to be, because those are those people that are there.
Well, this is the difference, though. Like, this will illustrate, or it's kind of eye-opening with how that works. So we ran Clash on the Coast 2023 for a couple of days, and we did that live on ESPN, right? Now, a lot of people don't understand how that works. You know, they think that maybe we sell our show to ESPN and ESPN pays us or whatever. That would be great. So that would take a lot off my plate. That's just one person that I would have to talk to. And so what happens is ESPN exchanges a block of ad space to us, and in return they broadcast our stuff. Now we still pay for production. We're paying for the video team. We're paying for anybody that we have on site working or whatever else. All the production costs still are taken up by us, but it's our responsibility to move that ad space. Now that ad space for this last year is worth between $2 and $3 million. But because of how small our sport is and our, the community is, maybe 5% of it, you know, or less.
I'm surprised that it's that. It's probably less than that.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to be nice.
Yeah. No, I'll back it up. It's going to be less than that.
So, and that's where the value on it, because I mean, what ends up happening is I end up giving a lot of that ad space away to our people. We just plastered Pioneer all over ESPN. We're plastered Cerberus and High Temp and these companies. We just, we ended up, blowing it out and then donating a bunch of it to Nine Line Apparel and to the YMCA to help save on the back end of it. So, but if you can actually monetize, if you can pick up an ad agent, a marketer to go and sell those things under a good economic climate like we are in now, and not like we were in the beginning of last year where everybody thought that the world was going to end, then you're looking at something special. And that's why, I've thought about, when we do the show, if we're going to do it to YouTube and kind of go the Cobra Kai way, try to build it up into something, hype it, and then have network pick it up or something like that. Or if we just keep running the same trajectory we are, using ABC, ESPN, Disney, whatever, to keep pushing it that way and doing this ad space thing. It's effectively monetizing that ad space is going to get the athletes paid. You want to have like $100,000 show. Very easy to do, not being rogue, if you're able to monetize, what you're getting. But it takes a lot from the athletes. It takes some work from them to hype it, and then it takes a lot of work on the inside to actually try to sell that stuff. But if you can, though, like the potential for dollars is there. I mean, it's there. Ad space is expensive. A 30-second block on ESPN
have you looked into ad managers? Because I know that there's ad managers that you can hire in the way that if they got $2 million worth of ads, then their job is to sell the $2 million worth of ads, with their commission on those ads.
Yeah. Oh, I have no problem paying the commission. It's good.
Maybe 20-40% or whatever.
Yeah, it's usually it's up to 40%.
Yeah, it's high. But it's the same way charities work.
But it doesn't matter if you're not going to get those ads yourself. Then
it's still it's 100%. It's 60% more than you had to begin with. And that's what they do for a living.
Yeah, like I don't know how to build a website for shit. I'd pay somebody to do that, and I would reap off the back end of that. It's you've got to sort of that's just how it works. So
but I'm glad we're talking about it, because the athletes don't understand how this all works.
Exactly, and it's it's something that it kind of needs to be out there. Like these are the blocks that sort of need to be built to get to where you're wanting to go to, and this is what it takes. And when you're talking about one guy or two guys trying to do a show and then shouldering the logistics of the show in addition to trying to do all this other stuff, it adds up. It's a lot. You can't do any of it effectively, and that's where you really need to enlist the outside help, having your agent to be able to do those kinds of things. Last year was a little bit weird. We kind of, because of the condition of the economy, it was odd. Like I couldn't give it away, really, and because the first place that everybody cut was ad spend and marketing. It was like, okay, we got to cut back because we think that the economy is going to crash and yada yada. And so it was a little bit tougher, but I think if we can get to that point, where we're monetizing that space that we're given, or if we're using a different broadcaster, a different way of broadcasting it to get it out there, and then monetizing that effectively, then we're going to kind of get to where we should be.
Well, the cool thing with this discussion is just 15 years ago, this whole discussion's not happening.
No.
because it's 30 years ago. It's definitely not happening because it's in a Motel 8 parking lot. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's frustrating, you know.
So to interject slightly, actually, interesting enough, and I'm really glad that I'm part of it, the Strongman Champions League. So what most people don't realize trying to get into it is that it's not just you get paid for to come up and show up in a competition and you compete and that's it. We arrive a few days before and we spend the 2 days before filming content for sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
We will go to different locations. We will pose. We will play out our script. We will smile and laugh, and we're having a good time. But it's not like we're sitting around in a huddle, vegetable state, getting ready for a competition. We're working for 2 days before it. Sometimes I have even worked the day after a competition, the whole day with a sponsor, filming content, walking around, doing whatever it is they want to do. Because end of the day, I understand that they paid for me to be there. I will put in the work to make them look good, to make them happy, because also the organizer will appreciate it, because he's the one that's also having the money to invite me there, because I'm working with these sponsors.
It's interesting because if you ever look at an NFL contract, you see shit like that that's in there.
Well, what he gets out of that too, those SCL shows, it's a polished product. And so he's talking about going out and filming B-roll and cutting the things together in post-production and putting together something that looks good.
No.
You know, it's slick. It looks professional. Live TV is
It's a 45-minute episode that looks good and it's perfectly cut.
Yeah.
With the drama, with the, excitement that we could put into a 45-minute show. That's why we do have so many viewers.
Yeah, but it feels like a real thing. It's not like somebody, just threw together in a parking lot one day. It feels like somebody made a show.
They've been doing this for a long while.
Yeah.
So,
and I give them credit for it. It's outside of the United States, it's taken a lot more seriously, and it generates quite a bit more sponsor dollars than it does in the U.S. It's real tough. We're catching up now.
Why do you think that is?
I think because I don't even have a good way to describe what I was going to say there. I think because physical strength is valued a lot more in Europe and Eastern Bloc countries, where this sort of is a hotbed. I think that those more like primal activities or things like that. Just I think strength around the world outside the U.S. is valued a lot more. In South America, we're seeing it huge. Southeast Asia is massive. Eastern Europe, it's huge. Africa, it's huge. I mean, you can really become a star like Iron Bibi, coming out of what country is he from in Africa? African athlete who's just a massive dude, huge presser, and is like a legit star in Africa because people there still care about those kinds of things. I mean,
to jump in with that, I recently competed at the World Nomad Games, which I did not know was a thing until I got invited. It's a huge thing. It's like the Eurasian Olympics. The production value was in the millions, tens of millions. All right, insane production value. Camera crews, national TV, international TV, coverage by almost every big news publication. The person that won it was this was in Kazakhstan. A Kazakhstan athlete won it. He was touted around in the country as a national sport hero. He got an apartment from the government. He got 3 horses. He got a job at their national bank. Like, they love him there as an athlete. And this is like in all those countries around there. In Uzbekistan, like, their budgets are probably not as big as our shows here or anything, but the first place athlete gets a car.
Well, you can see that in the Olympics too.
So,
if you win the Olympics and you're from South Korea, you're set for life.
That's it.
Like, you get a pension
Yep.
for podiuming in the Olympics. Other countries, they do that kind of stuff. You win the Olympics here and they give you like 15 grand. It's something stupid for getting a gold medal.
You won't even cover your costs to get ready for that.
Yeah. And you're trying to stump for sponsors and other things to kind of offset your income so you can be a real professional athlete. Over there, it's lucrative to be an
You're
athlete.
a hero just for doing the sport without having to put in that work into the extra.
But it used to be like that here.
Yeah.
You used to have guys like, Jim Thorpe or whatever used to pop out and it was like, holy crap. It's amazing. Now nobody, besides like who we got? We got Simone Biles, Michael Phelps. I know
who was
the rugby player?
Huh?
The rugby player girl. She's doing really good.
Oh,
now.
I saw on Sports Illustrated, that one.
Yeah.
Well, the female basketball player that just went to the WNBA. from college. Her name skips my mind
Caitlin.
right now. Caitlin.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what. It's interesting because it seems like here you need to have the entertainment value to actually go with the skills.
Yeah.
Right. Where over there you just need to have that.
You just need to be a really good athlete.
Be that really good athlete. Right here you're going to have that entertainment value, or the sport needs to have that breakout personality that has the skills. Michael Jordan. You know, every sport, if you look through the growth curve of the sport, you're going to see that it pops when you have some breakout personalities.
Right.
There's usually more than just one that falls into that to be able to cry. This just seems to be how it works here.
Mm-hmm. It would seem like, okay, as far as reception, like my personal experience, again, Kazakhstan, every single day that I was there, especially anywhere near the athletic complex where everyone was competing, I spent at least a minimum of 1 to 2 hours taking pictures with random people that just came up to me, wanted a picture. They didn't know what I do, but they're like, "You're so big and strong.
Yeah.
Do you do the sports?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, can we please have a picture? Here's my baby.
Mm-hmm.
They literally had me their babies, like the first time they've ever seen me. And they tell me about their cultural stories and folklore and everything about how they have these giant, strong men in their stories and myths and, you know, the lifestyle. To where like after the competition day when we had the ceremony and everything, I spent a genuine 2.5 hours straight taking pictures with people. And
Yeah,
I was
but
happy to do that.
I mean, just listening to that, I can see where the confusion then comes with the strongman athletes when you're asking them to be entertainers, because they're going to compete in these other countries and think, I don't have to do that shit over there. You know, the
But
people
I
that
had
went
to.
over.
There were other guys with me there that got none of that attention. But I was smiling. I was happy to talk to people. I said hello. I asked them questions. They talked to me. I tried to communicate with almost everyone that came up to me.
If you're high-fiving, if you're like, exactly, if you're engaging your consumer, right? Like personally, that goes a long way, you know. Like we did a Masters show with Chad Coy out in Missouri, like last year, and Brian Shaw showed up for it, and like all the kids, we had a bunch of kids staying at the same hotel where we held it because they were there for like a baseball championship thing, right? And out front, you could tell that we were doing a strongman event, and all the kids were walking up to all the athletes around. Is Brian Shaw here? Or like, who else is here? And blah blah blah, that kind of thing. And every one of them showed up to watch that damn show, and every one of them lost their minds at the end because Brian stayed after it. And I guarantee you, Brian Shaw made fans for life. You know, high-fiving those 100 kids and hanging out with them and stuff. The ones, you know, nobody wants to talk to the guy that's screaming like an asshole after he gets a lift, you know, or pissed off after. Like, professionalism sometimes is very much lacking. Yeah. You know, it's fun to be emotionally in a good way, but, you know, if you're a jerk, nobody wants to talk to you and nobody's going to be a fan of you. You know, but if you're going out there, if you're smiling, if you're talking to people, that was one of the things, like back to Jesse Marone did, that was like my favorite thing about Jesse, because the guy was just pure enthusiasm, you know, he's athletic too, but you know, when you're engaging people at that level, it's like you just made a fan, dude. Every time you're going out, you're bringing back fans, people looking you up, typing your name, you know, hitting you up on Instagram or whatever, buying that crap that you're shilling for from whatever sponsor that it is. So we need some more work with that. And
we might forget it as athletes, but we might look intimidating to the average general person, I guess. So something as much as a smile or a fist bump suddenly opens them up.
It's huge.
You know?
I mean, I was told that when I was in high school, because powerlifting in high school, 250 pounds jacked and shit, is CEO of one of the warehouse districts, or it was a warehouse that I was working in during the summer, made a statement to me basically saying, you know, you're big, you're intimidating, you know, that's going to be that first impression. But what you got to remember is you had their attention, right? So what comes out your mouth is going to determine
whether they like you or not.
If you reinforce what they think you are, or if you don't. And if you don't, then they're going to remember you, you know, so there's an advantage to being big, bald, intimidating, because people are generally going to be, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, they're going to look, right? Now, they may have a prejudice against it. Like, oh, this guy's going to beat the fuck out of me or whatever it's going to be, until you smile and give him a high five or a fist bump. Then, like, man, that's the coolest fucking person I've ever seen.
Yeah, you want to be Thunder Lips.
Yeah, yes.
You know, you want to be Thunder Lips. Yeah. Hulk Hogan. And Rocky
so, I mean, that's the cool thing that Strongman has, though, is because that intimidation or that attention, better word, attention, the intention is immediately there. just from the physical structure.
Especially when there's 12 of you starting all in one place.
Oh God, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's intimidating. I can imagine.
Until they ask you if you're wrestlers or some shit like that. But that right there, if they understand that. So it's, are you saying that's one of the biggest problems that's going on right now, or that's a problem that the athletes are beginning to understand?
I don't think the athletes are quite understanding it. I don't think they will until it's laid out for them and shown that it's like, I think the issue needs to be forced. You know, I think I've got to put the show out and just push them into it, and then get the response and be like, there's the ends that justify the means you were bitching about. You know, I think that it has to be done. And I mean, because I believe in it, I believe 100%, and that's the solution.
Now on the back end, isn't this kind of working its way out in an indirect way? Because as promoters, you're going to try to say this as politely as I possibly can. You're going to be looking for the people that have a social following to begin with. Like if you have two people, even skill set, one's got 300,000 followers on Instagram and is personal on Instagram, the other one's got 100. Who are you going to go with?
If you have 300,000 followers, then people are following you for a reason, right?
Yeah.
It means that like you are magnetic somehow. You know, you're entertaining to them, or they find you fascinating or something. So naturally, that's an easy choice because you've already proven it.
Yes, but on the other end of that, a lot of them that are coming in are going to do what they want to do, whatever they want to do to be able to build that.
Right.
Because they potentially want to have the same following as Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw and being able to monetize on the back end once the career's over.
Right.
Right. So there is a shared interest.
Definitely.
You would think.
Absolutely.
You know, that connection seems like it's just not being made.
Yeah, I think I've been an actor for a while, and I'm now doing the production stuff with sports. There's similarities in producing a television show or a movie or whatever, and I think you've got to bring people in, like casting almost.
Mm-hmm.
You got to bring people in and interview them, see what they're about, and see if that following and that personality is going to line up with what your objective is. You know, there are people in the sport who have big, awesome personalities and are great athletes, and there's people in the sport who are fucking psychopaths, and you might be entertaining, but probably not something you want to associate your brand with.
Mm-hmm.
Your thing. And you got to have those bad boys, and you got to have those characters and things like that, but you don't want to overweigh it in any one area. So I think it's just taking it, because maybe it would be a show. I think you'd have to address it the same way you would any other show, and put the right people in, and then hopefully, if you get a good hook on it, and people really take to it, and then you can start, bringing more in, and bringing more of your unknowns, your underdogs and things like that. We see that a lot with the Arnold. You had guys show up to the Arnold to compete, and it was like, who the hell is that dude? And then it was like, holy crap, that guy came from out of nowhere in podium. And I love seeing those ones. It was the best. There was a guy back in from Germany named Martin Muir back in the early aughts, and he was a skinny dude who was like 6'3" and looked like a CrossFitter, and I watched him competing with guys like Glenn Ross at 450 pounds, Z, and all this stuff. And Martin went out, and he was just like an animal. He was so athletic and so enthusiastic and cool. It was like instantly became a fan of that guy. And so trying to find those people, it's cool. Yeah, you want to do that too. But in the beginning, I've got some ideas. We've for the show, we've even talked about putting men against women in bodyweight based type challenges, and competitions and things like that. I've talked about restructuring Strongman from the bottom up to make it consumable in that form, and dramatically and athletically consumable and imitable. And I would love to see somebody like Rhiannon Lovelace, for example, come out and beat Andrew Clayton's ass in a competition.
That'd be interesting to see.
Like a 5X almost deadlifting female, and come out and just walk a guy like that with his kind of attitude at that level. I think it would be beautiful. I'd love to see that. And because it adds to the drama. So what else can I do? What else? How else can we kind of put it together to find who the ultimate athlete is? You know what I mean? So
Well, you mentioned earlier that the women would be under promoted.
Absolutely.
So expand on that.
Easy. I mean, you can go onto Instagram and you can take the top 50 women in the world, and they're going to have, with the exception of an outlier like Eddie Hall, who's inactive technically now, they're going to have far higher following than any men, and then per capita, definitely much higher following than any guy out there, because.
They're more personable, more approachable.
Well, they're going to bring in men that want to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the most marketable thing that women have going for them is like that they're women, you know, and like people expect men to be strong. People expect men to do these awesome athletic things. Don't expect women to go out and kick ass the way they do. That's why Caitlyn coming in and throttling WNBA the way she is has created, you know, like ridiculous viewing records for the WNBA. And it's sort of it's spitting out to other females, to women's sports right now. You know, it's having this effect, this sort of ripple effect. And, you know, you put women out there who are strong, who are confident. You're going to bring in young girls. You're going to bring in older women. You're going to, you know, there's so many different types of people they're going to bring in from the female side who don't normally watch television. Because
that's already the demographic, from a big part of the demographic from what you said. So they're already there, but then they're going to bring the guys in too.
Yeah, it's taking the product and refining it for their consumption. You know, and then on top of that, though, you're going to have the guys. You're going to have the ones that want to see a badass chick kicking ass, good-looking girl, whatever, you know, doing whatever on there. Good and bad, you know. I guess, what did they say? Like, all attention is good attention.
Oh yeah,
There's such thing as bad attention.
I was glad to see that with the Arnold stage last year, where they gave the main floor to the women the same way as the men, and they was sold out and packed. Like, they had just as many people watching the women compete as they had the men almost.
They actually proved them wrong too, because the prior year they got boned on it. They
had a separate side stage
back behind the bleachers where nobody could see it, and it was like
thinking that nobody would want to watch them, and it's the complete opposite. People were there to see it.
It was shit, but it's like it's right there. They're not getting their due. They are 100% the most marketable demographic in our sport, and maybe any sport. It's untapped too. It's like it's watching Tesla just sitting out there at $5 a share, you know, and going, oh shit, that could be a thing, you know. Nobody wants to touch it. Nobody's got the balls to go and put money into women. I mean, I do, but like not a lot of people do. But that's where it's at. Like, I would absolutely love to figure out a way to do something for them worthy of what they deserve. And so, you know, that's why I'm thinking of, you know, just different ways to try to monetize that and do that for them. But, you know,
I mean, I love doing this. That when I often, especially when I'm out with my wife Lily somewhere, and someone come up, I was like, "Oh, you're so huge and big, and like, what are your lifts and whatever?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're this and this, but my wife's stronger." They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, she is stronger, pound for pound. She absolutely would outlift me. If she was my size, my weight, I would be an amateur compared to her." So like the weights that some women can move, it's ridiculous. So like, why not? And then they start looking up her numbers or like listening to what she lifts, and they're like, oh wow, yeah, you are ridiculously strong. Yeah, that's
now from the entertainment and personality side. Are there any outliers on the women's end?
Absolutely.
That can blow up?
Yeah, you've got. I mean, I think there's obviously you're going to have the ones who are athletic, who are strong. I think the ones that are aesthetically pleasing are going to have a little bit of an edge too. Yeah, I mean, I could rattle off a name of lots of females that, you know, have definitely got the it that you could drop like right in there and instantly, you know, would do well. There's also ones who are, I think, just ridiculous personalities, you know, or just have like great backstories. You know, like Becca Roberts is like maybe my favorite female strongman ever. Strong woman ever. She has the biggest heart. She is the most humble. She's just a beautiful person, and she has a sad backstory, you know, and it's something that, you know, people can relate to. And you watch somebody like that, you know, grind and then succeed and then do well. You know, she's going for her third World's Strongest Woman title this year, you know. When you watch somebody like that do that, and it's just, you know, it's dramatic gold. So,
like, I've met her the first time at OSG Europe, like 6 years ago, maybe. And even then, she did pretty well, if I remember right. But seeing her just journey through all that and get to where she is now has been like an amazing and impressive just story of itself. Like, that deserves a documentary.
It mirrors a lot of things that other people are going through.
No?
A lot of other women are going through. Abused as a young woman. Her father ended up getting Alzheimer's and dementia and passing away. Her fiance passed away a couple of years ago, and she's kind of on her own, sort of off in the ocean, just kind of trying to find her way and stuff. She has a great story. It's a great thing to want to put out there and feel good about. She watched her just go from less secure, about herself and everything else, to becoming strong and a role model for other females, and then to becoming the world's strongest woman, and then that just whole thing, magnifying, becoming this amazing thing. So there are stories like that. There's a lot of them on the female side, and then you've definitely got bad girls, just like you have bad guys, and especially now there's a couple of bad girls that came to light with a couple of professional strongmen with some drama recently, and it seems so obvious, it's like we can just, oh man, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, there's Ree, I mentioned her earlier. She's an incredible person, but also an amazing strong woman, and I think Ree maybe is the strongest pound for pound strength athlete on the planet. Like, pound for pound strongest strength athlete, any strength athlete on the planet.
And as strong as she was, I remember I was at a competition once where I was at my heaviest, completely out of breath, and she was helping me put my shoes on in between events.
Yeah, very sweet.
And out there while I'm trying to heave my guts out and recover between events, she's there helping me out and
we'll sit there
getting me a water or whatnot.
She'll talk to you like she's known you forever.
Yeah.
Every time I see her, I probably don't have more than 15 minutes ever talking to her. And every time I talk to her, I'd be like, hey, it's awesome. And there's good people like that out there. I think there's more of them on the female side, honestly, than there are on the men's side. But so, they're extremely valuable. I think they're very they're a treasure in strength athletes, in strength athletics that hasn't been recognized yet. And they deserve more than what they're getting. Them more than anybody, not the weight class men or any of that stuff. It really is the women, in my opinion.
Do they know the value of their story? Because a lot of this they could be already starting to build themselves, just through their socials.
I think it is, but think of where the athletes, like I said before, where they're coming from. There's their lives of adversity, right? They've been more so with the females. That they've been discounted, they've likely been abused, they've had hard lives in a lot of different ways, and are trying to overcome that by becoming this through the sport. They're using the sport to transcend their demons, and so but I think a lot of people, athletes, men and female, male and female, get fixated on the goal and less on the journey. And recognizing how far they've come and how amazing that is, and how valuable that is for other people that might be going through some things that aren't strong women or whatever, or found that medium. And so I think Rhea is doing a documentary right now.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I think she's documenting her next run at World's Strongest Woman in 64s, and
some are using their platforms to push along their message or cause. So,
there's a precipice we're sitting at right now, where we're kind of at that spot where it's starting to get recognized, and that there might actually be something to this. And with Ree trying to explore this thing with the documentary, is if those things start taking off, then it's just it becomes kind of
it's a catalyst for others, because
like an avalanche.
Yeah, nobody wants to put their shit out on social media, right?
Right.
But if a few do, then they're successful and it helps other people, then more will follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, though, on the backside of it is there are a slew of predators in the sport, and you have bad people that take the sport and they drag it back, and they're poisonous. They're poisonous to the people who are using this as an escape, and they need to be run out. And unfortunately, they're held on pedestals in a lot of cases, and not run out, and those cause issues down the road, which sort of delegitimize to an extent the sport, you know. And I think in strength sports in general, there's a ton of predators. You have those cannibal types that get involved because they see people who are battling their demons or feeling insecure and using this as a crutch or as something, like I said, to transcend their demons, and they take advantage of them. You know, it's like, I'm gonna slide in. I'm a trainer. I'm gonna get this athlete blasted up on gear and take advantage of them, and and then their friends, and then make them do stuff maybe they don't want to do. And you know, we've had, like, it's personal for me, because you know, we've had athletes who have passed away lately, recently, kill themselves because they were under the thumb of guys like that who are still in the sport, you know. And so I think, you know, there's a couple things that need to be done. We got to take out the trash, and we got to take care of the good things that we have going.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's definitely a lot of good and space for good,
there definitely is.
and a lot of good messages.
Yeah. Well, I think in anything you're going to have, you know, good and bad messages, but you just have to push the good to be able to outweigh the bad.
I think it just
That's
takes a
how you
little
do
bit
it.
to poison the well, though, too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I went through some stuff this last year with somebody that I had no idea had a background as an abuser, as, you know, a convicted fraud artist and stuff, and screwed me out of many thousands of dollars that would have gone to my athletes, and, you know, and is held up on a pedestal promoting shows and doing things, you know, in the sport right now, because people are super short-sighted about it. You know, it's like, oh, I made $100 this show. You know, they don't see the greater good or the long term of it, you know. And so, you know, I expect it because of where a lot of these people come from. You know, it's still, in the end, a lot of damaged people, and they're going to do damaged people things. But I think that we can do better. So.
Well, I would think that there would be models to follow, because the same shit's happened in MMA, boxing, basically every other female sport that kind of crosses the chasm, you know, of that, because it's not new.
Right.
Right. I'm not saying that it's right by any fucking means.
Right.
I'm just saying that the model of being able to handle that, you know, should, you know, be laid out to know how to do that. And I think a big part of that is amplify the best, you know, from that. And then, because it's hard, when you're a piece of shit, it's hard to compete with people that are kicking your ass all the time.
Right. Well, I would disagree. I think, like, one of the biggest pieces of shit in the sport is a multi-time world's strongest man, you know. And it's a weird thing that happens in strength sports. People equate strength with credibility. You know, like, just because you're a badass on the competition floor, people think that, like, you're an authority in something, you know, life-wise or whatever, that you should be able to dole out advice or be taken seriously or whatever. And it's absolutely not true. But you know, I think that there's a lot of, and I don't even know the solution for it, but there's a lot of trash at the top, and, you know, it people just let it sit there because they're good at lifting a fucking barbell. And it's sad. You got, like, I mean, there was, you know, years ago in powerlifting, there was, you know, a couple of guys that I heard about who were, you know, smacking women around and doing shit. And people just blow it off. They're like, you know, and you get guys like Goob who are on Instagram now, kind of outing people a little bit at a time, maybe a little bit, you know, too, I guess, self-gratifying or self-enriching with it, but, you know, kind of shining a spotlight on it. But back in the day, it was like, you know, this guy could slap the shit out of his wife or his girlfriend. She could go to the hospital. She could post pictures online, and people would be like, yeah, man, he's going to go for a 1,000-pound bench, you know? And it was like, instead of, you know, putting that guy where he belongs, you know, and ostracizing him, because it just takes a little bit to poison the well. And so that kind of stuff really bothers me.
Well, I think also part of it was social media. The issues that you have the pitchfork crews that, you know, if their popular favorite person that they follow says something, then they're more likely to believe them than the other side of the story, just because they're already following him and he's popular, he can't possibly be right. So once 10 people start thinking it, then 100 people start thinking, then you have the whole pitchfork crew jumping in together and chasing the other person out, despite that person maybe being the right one. Whoever has the lesser following, for example. But it also comes down to, so some people holding these athletes in high regard in their heads makes it impossible for them to even assume the fact or entertain the possibility that this person could do any wrong, because then the fact that they're following them makes them feel like they're the wrong person, they're the asshole.
Yeah, or that they're guilty by association also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they'd rather pretend that, or not even pretend, willfully ignore it and assume that, no, they can't possibly be true, so I'm going to keep following this person and believe them that they're innocent, because then I'm innocent, rather than doing the right thing and, hey, maybe I should unfollow this person, or maybe I should look into the story, or maybe even give it a little bit of thought, or at the very least not jump on the bandwagon with pitchforks chasing down people for the absolute wrong reasons that you don't know anything about.
All right, so if it's a new strength athlete, male or female, and coming into the sport, then what are the things that they should look for in finding good coaches and good people? Right, because a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, these red flags, they're not going to be able to see, because it's going to be hidden behind followers or whatever it's going to be.
I mean, the first place is probably not to look for a coach on Instagram based on followers.
Yeah.
But,
I think longevity. I think if you've been in, we keep talking about Clint because Clint's so great.
Yeah.
But Clint's been coaching forever, and there's there is a history of good results and of good behavior with somebody like that.
Well, I would also say it's hard to stand for a really long time if you're fucked up.
Exactly.
Shit,
well, that's
right?
the whole thing.
Yeah,
if there's a break in it, then you're gonna know. He's been around long enough to have some stuff on him online. If there was a problem there, and there's just nothing. There's great trainers out there like Mike Westerling. No. Mike Westerling is one of the best strongman trainers in the world, and not a lot of people know it. But know Mike since the olden days. That's a guy you should have on, Dave. Mike Westerling is incredible. That guy has trained some champions, and people who have worked with them have just only good things to say about him. That's one of the things you want to look for.
A good sign, also is let's say on social media, on Instagram or whatnot, you ask for a good coach and you'll get linked the top 10 coaches that are followed by everyone. You ask on YouTube, or even we made a YouTube episode with Juju Mufu where Clint got featured, and there were so many comments about how amazing Clint is, or how glad they are that Clint finally got a spotlight, or how Clint interacted them with once and how great it was, or how he coached them and helped them. You go on any forum and you ask for a coach, Clint and top 5-6 names always get mentioned. You go on any strength Discord where they ask what's a good strongman coach, Clint will be one of those people mentioned. Along with
you make a good point. I'm usually one of the people that say don't read fucking comments, right? But in this case, this would be one of the scenarios where you'd probably want to spend more time reading comments than you'd want to spend reading the actual post or whatever it's going to be.
Probably, yes.
Because in that case, the comments are going to be more valuable to an aspiring strength athlete than the actual video was.
Probably,
right?
Yes.
Because those are unfiltered.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think
and maybe not use social media for it.
Yeah. I think that's
if you're going to, use the comments.
Pre-screen.
Right?
Yeah. To kind of check the Amazon reviews.
Yeah.
I get that, and that's I think that's fair to do. I think though too that the flip side of bad behavior or alleged bad behavior is that sometimes the allegations are bullshit too, and you have to kind of consider that.
But that's the issue with the pitchfork crews on social media.
Yeah, but you also got if you're not wanting to go that direction, you have a lot of apps are becoming popular now with fitness training apps where you can go on and automate your programming through this app that will tell you exactly what to do, and it's things that are built by world champion athletes, strength athletes. You got Strengthlete. Strengthlete Collective is an online app that Anthony Furman, former World's Strongest Man, John Hack, a lot of like Bobby Thompson's on, a lot of different great strongmen go in there, and they build their programs for you to follow, and it's automated so that when when you're ready to progress, the app progresses with you. And so you want to cut the bullshit out, cut the human element out, and just kind of sit down and grind on something. That's a good option. So there's things like that available too, electronically. The kids these days, everything's got to be like an app or something, it seems like.
Yeah.
But so there's that. But I think you got to be wary of the good and the bad with the sport. There's great people in the sport. There's a lot of really bad people in the sport too, and it's just not all
Well, it's with the good and the bad, so we'll kind of stay on that because there's going to be camps for both, right? And the good can become bad. Right. So you don't know that either, so you can have somebody that's, got this great reputation. Then all of a sudden the next year, they're,
you only
they're
know
a piece
what you
of
know
shit.
about them.
Yes.
like
So if somebody's working with somebody, then how do they know when it's time to bail? What are the things that would be bad that they would, for instance, you talked earlier that somebody will start just blasting people, telling them to blast tons of drugs.
Sure.
Right. Because we can take any of these, bad coaches and somebody could work with them and have no issues.
Yeah.
Right. Because they know how to avoid when those things would come in, just to be able to say, no, that's cool. I'm going to do this. So what are some of those red flags?
It's the same thing as any other teacher growing up, especially for a female. If your trainer is trying to fuck you, then you need to run.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Okay. And if your trainer is trying to get you hopped up on androgens, so you put up and do kinky shit, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So, and that's a lot of what we see.
Okay.
It's like little men, trying to do this stuff to women to take advantage of them. So it's not worth the fucking trade-off, and you're going to hate yourself later, or you're going to have some, psychiatric issues down the road, like Rebecca Lorch, who killed herself a couple of years ago. Amazing, beautiful, strong woman, who was working with one of the people I was talking about, and, was abused horribly. It was common knowledge, and, she couldn't deal with it anymore. She was just harassed out of her mind. Just, that was her only out. So, I mean, that I think is the obvious one. If you have a trainer and the first thing that they suggest is getting you on testosterone replacement without even like running you to Merrick Labs.
Yeah.
Like if they're suggesting you do these sort of like ancillary things without, getting a good read on your capabilities or your medical history or things like that, if they seem careless, then those are problems.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to like really seriously reconsider, what you're doing.
That's the issue, because some people just don't know better. So, it's the coach.
Well, that's why these conversations need to happen, right?
Exactly.
So if we have these conversations, then they know, that
needs to be more common knowledge.
Yes, that these are the things that should be avoided until X time.
Yep.
Right? Because there may be a certain time to where that would be, not the sexual shit, but the PEDs would have to come in. But even with that, you're kind of out of scope of practice. Like as soon as you start telling somebody to take something, in my view, you're prescribing now without a prescription.
I disagree. I think if you're working with a master's aspirant, if you have somebody who wants to compete in Master Strongman, he's a 50-year-old guy, he's like, you know what? I used to be an athlete, I want to get back into this. First thing I'm looking at is, what am I working with?
Yeah.
Right. And a responsible thing to do at that level is a cardiac screening and hormonal screening.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the person that says, "Hey, look, go black market and start taking trend."
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
You got to do it responsibly.
Yeah.
And so I agree. I advocate working on that premise, especially with the cardiac screening. There's not enough guys in our sport that are getting blood work done and or having calcium tests or anything. It's bizarre. I had a friend of mine drop dead in the middle of a show I was at a couple of years ago. One of the best guys in the sport dropped dead after carrying a fucking sandbag, and was 95% occluded on most of his cardiac arteries. So it was could have been prevented.
Yes.
Like me being 400 pounds, I know I carry a risk, no matter how athletic I am.
And at 36 years old, or
35. But
But a simple CT scan or a calcium score.
Once I start my Strongman season, I will go to my cardiologist for a full screening, and at the end of my Strongman season, like just now, weeks before, I will go to my cardiologist for a complete screening, and he's like, "You're okay?
Yeah.
Carry on, just be smart. So
yeah. But a lot of guys don't want to do that. They'll put their money into their stack.
yeah,
before they put it into their health. And so it's like, it's very elementary to be like, okay, let's go see what I'm working with and attack that accordingly. If your A1Cs are high, then we're going to tweak the diet. And, if your cholesterol is high, we're going to figure out what's going on with that. BP, your calcium score, whatever, and then doing that. That's a responsible thing that, if I was working with a 40 plus year old athlete, this is the first place I would go with it. And I think if you sort of can recognize that type of behavior where somebody is concerned and preventive instead of reactive. Well, no, you get to be equal parts, I guess, preventive, reactive, but I guess blindingly prescribing, courses of action or drugs or whatever like that. That seems pretty basic. You know?
But to some it's not, right?
But to some it's not.
Yeah.
I've learned, over the years, Dave, that you can't save them all.
Yeah.
Like I tried for a long time.
Yeah.
And, what is that? It's just social Darwinism. The people that get it are going to get it, or that can get it will get it if you do whatever you can, if you lay it out for them. And the ones that can't, it is what it is.
Well, to me, there's really no excuse for it because there are places like Merrick Health, discount code in the description, throw that out there. But it's way easier now than, say, when I was coming up, right? I was fortunate to be able to have somebody to be able to do blood work, from a preventative thing very early on. But I was the only person that I knew, that had that. And there was a time it got bad, right? And it was good. It took a while for it to get bad, and I earned it, so I can say that way too. But a lot of people the accessibility for it is easy. And it doesn't cost. They're spending more on their cycle than they're going to spend for the labs.
Yeah, it's never been easier to take care of yourself. 100%.
Exactly.
Telemedicine is like one of the greatest things that we've got. Going. I've got an insurance plan now where I don't have to go into my doctor. I can go on a video call, and if I'm sick, I can get an antibiotic. If I feel objectively that's what I need. It's awesome. There's no excuse to not take advantage of those types of things, like Merrick Health.
Well, like I said,
I can't afford their amazing discount codes.
Yeah, I get it.
You can still get a lab where.
Yeah, but like I said, that's to me that's the thing that I don't understand why people wouldn't do now, because 30 years ago I get it. Like, you're going to walk in the doctor, you're going to get lectured about being on testosterone and weighing too much, and you're going to die, and all that. You don't lift more than 40 pounds, and all this other shit. To where now the options are less than a cycle. Way less than the cycle, to be able to know that. And for most people, they don't need to get quarterly labs and shit like that. It's
even once a year,
something like that. Yeah. And and hell, even a CT scan is not, if you private pay, it's going to cost. It's going to cost a little bit more, right? But it depends. I mean, if it's not without contrast and you shop it around, it's still maybe $600. It's still going to be more than what most people are going to want to pay. Yeah. But if a doctor prescribes it, because they're more willing to prescribe it. Say if somebody like him walks in and hey, I think maybe I should get a calcium score. You think they're going to say, nah, that's probably not a good idea.
It's more expensive.
I had a doctor ask me when I told him I have sleep apnea and I need a CPAP. They did are you sure you have sleep apnea? I'm like, I don't need to test it to tell you I have it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Having a heart attack is a lot more expensive than a CT.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And your rehab and everything else. It's it's basic maintenance. If you want to, if you're going to race cars, you can change the fucking oil. If you want to do the stuff that we do, you've got to also be willing to, do the maintenance that needs to be done.
You are a race car.
Yes.
So,
along with that, I've been ablated in both chambers, right? So there's the time that you can't train too.
Left,
both. So one for flutter, one for AFib.
Okay.
So
just the atrium.
Yeah. So and heart. So just the time period of dealing with those heart issues was 2.5, 3 years.
Interesting. Is that why I'm here today?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Maybe someday I will need a pacemaker, but
A
so
lot of
far
guys,
everything's.
if you're ablated a couple of times, I mean, your incidence of reoccurrence obviously increases.
Yeah.
If that ever
Well,
happens.
it's different chambers. I mean, so it's
Still, but it's usually in your left. Is what happens.
Yeah.
If that happens, holler at me.
Oh yeah.
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 But it's then you know. So,
Yeah.
But
that's what when people think about the risk, if they're just like blasting gear, because that's kind of one of those people, right? They all kind of look at that as whatever. If I die, I die.
Mm-hmm.
They all assume that it's going to be like, you're going to do a heavy squat, you're going to just fall over dead, or you're going to be in a competition and just fall over dead,
right.
which would kind of be the best situation.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a good situation, right?
No.
But compare.
But it's like going out on the shield.
No, but
kind of
compare
thing,
that to not being able to get out of bed.
Yeah.
For 5 months because of medication that you're taking that doesn't work, and then you got to go different. Then you're in a hospital for fucking 2 months dealing.
And then you're on
or
life
the rest,
support
or the
the
rest of your
ICU.
life,
Yep.
you're compromised because they don't think of that this may be a long-term impediment that you're going to deal with for 20 years.
Yep.
I never did. You just think of it as I'll just fucking die, whatever. It's worth it, And but it's not looking in hindsight, looking back. But I got to also be intuitive and smart enough to understand what the mindset was when I was 25 years old.
Yeah,
right?
I got you.
So it's because that's the mindset of the people that would be listening, right? So I still get what it's like to be on that side, but all I'm saying is what you think the outcome is may not actually be that outcome.
Sometimes
it could be
way worse than just falling over and dying under a squat.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, almost dying is even, that's worse. Having CPR performed in you, real CPR is a nightmare. And then having to come back from that, that might make you wish that you're not alive. I can tell you definitively, having died as many times as I have, I can tell you exactly what death is like.
Yes.
That life is much better.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It's much better.
And so, please take care of yourselves if that is, like as much as you can within your means, but it's weird, man. I think back to that. I had like a 1 in 6 billion chance of coming back off of that shit. That many, like you got a 5% chance of recovering, like from one cardiac arrest. 5% chance once, not 6 in a row. It's like I don't know. I still don't know anybody. I belong to like cardiac athletes, and I don't know anybody who's died as many times as I have. But yeah, you gotta do that kind of stuff. There's nothing. I mean, I guess it's worth noting. There's nothing I could do to have prevented anything that happened to me. It was just it was a thing. I was lucky that I wasn't driving. Jesus Christ. You hear about those guys that like they go into cardiac arrest and they find their truck off of the side of the fucking road in a field somewhere. And I'm lucky that I wasn't with my family or anything like that. That scares the shit out of me. I think back to that, I was just shopping at elitefts.com. But
your experiences may or may not differ.
Yeah.
Yep. Price is so amazing. Art. But I wish more people would do that. My buddy passed away, Shannon Willis, awesome dude. And it was the first time I'd ever heard of a guy dying in a strongman competition. Just, it's happened. We lost Jesse due to undiagnosed hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. He had a right side myopathy in his heart. It was a hereditary thing. Killed him. We lost Aaron Page a couple years ago over in the UK to what a lot of people think had something to do with the vax. He had pericarditis and some other things, and it's a lot of guys, that have passed away from things that like just need to be recognized and rectified. So I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, while we're talking about like things that people aren't thinking about, so that would be good.
I think also part of it circles back to us mentioning that the people that have done certain sports, especially to a high level degree, they probably have done health checks earlier on. So I remember when I was playing rugby, we had to do mandatory health checks, cardiac, blood draw, etc., just to be cleared to play in the season. And that was 15, 20 years ago when I was still, teenager. So I'm assuming a lot of other professional athletes have gone through that before even coming to Strongman. So if they have any issues or possibilities of issues, they probably had the opportunity to address them just because they already got screened earlier.
Yeah.
Well, you do have, I mean, it's a farce, but you have
The physical.
organizations like Giants Live or World's Strongest Man. I've talked to guys who have gone through those physicals and say it's a fucking joke. Like it's a liability thing that they do just to be able to do the show and not get their asses sued in case you drop dead in it. Like it's like almost word for word, whatever. It's like, you know, it's a guy, you know, looks you up and down, and you sign off and he signs off and says, hey, you're good to go. Kind of like if you heard about the physicals they used to do at the WWE.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we're testing. You know, for like
Full stop.
Like, yeah, like stupid stuff, you know, like stuff that doesn't matter. But they had that, you know, they had that policy at World's Strongest Man for the longest time too. I had a long talk with Colin Bryce one year during Worlds, and like, you know, I said that you guys got to be doing something with these physicals. I think it was after Shannon passed away, and I said, you know, you're just going to keep having problems. The guys, they are pushing the limits of their biology chemically faster than biology can evolve, right? So you're not developing a capacity, like a biologic capacity that's increasing with the shit that you're taking. It's not happening. You're just using more and more and getting lucky that nothing's happened yet, right? But now we're having guys washing out with more severe, you know, issues, and you know, and even passing away. And you know, I brought up to Colin and I cited, you know, Jesse and a couple of the other people that passed away, and he's like, "What am I supposed to do?" You know, and I think it's the stupidest way to like what are you supposed to do? Like, you got IMG money behind you. Be fucking responsible. Go spend some money on your athletes. So just another way that you can value your athlete, you know, it's not just throwing money at them. It's by taking care of them. That's a commodity. Not only do you fuck up badly if your athlete dies in the middle of your show, you know, but you're preserving your investment in that person, in that athlete, by taking care of them. I think another thing I guess worth noting is it's a fucking sham now that we have people that they call professional strongmen, you know, myself included, that aren't given the benefits of other professionals in the industry, including healthcare. You know, like how is Strongman Corporation or USS, you know, who, like, I love Willie and I love James and all those guys, and you know, they're making headway. They're working towards it. But like, if you're going to have a professional athlete, you've got to give them the benefits that, you know, that preserve that professionalism. You know, there's got to be like a status quo that has to be maintained. You can't, otherwise they're not pros. You know, salaries, benefits, and things like that. We talked about it. My mom was a big deal. My mom was one of the best women's poker players in the world, and for a long time, she was also a healthcare advocate. And you know, for a long time, she was working with the World Poker Tour to bring healthcare to the athletes, because you have a guy sitting on their asses for hours and hours on end, gambling, and they eat like shit and they drink like shit. They're super stressed out, and
it's probably caffeine.
There are a lot of caffeine, and methamphetamine, a lot of other stuff. You know, they're super overweight and they don't care. You know, they want to get guys at a table, sell a show, you know, and make some bucks. But you have a lot of these sort of fringe sports that, you know, have these professional athletes, and they're not being treated like professionals in the ways that they should. You know, I've done shows. I take insurance out on all my shows. If anything ever happens, my athletes, you know, are taken care of. Luckily, nothing's ever happened. But a lot of times you can go to a pro show that's not even insured. Like, it's so shitty the way that people cut costs and, you know, kind of circumvent the necessities, in my opinion, the necessities for, you know, at the expense of the bottom line, which is, you know, lining their pockets. So,
yeah, I've taken out insurances in case a person in the audience accidentally steps into the arena and gets injured, so that I'm able to cover them. As far as that,
it's a responsible and like very reasonable and very worthwhile thing to do. You know, like, but
well, if it happens, then you're not putting on another show ever again.
There's also that.
You know, so there is that. Any other topics you guys wanted to talk about I didn't bring up? Any questions that you had?
Oh, I don't know. I sent you the whole list, didn't I?
Yeah, I think we got through all of them.
No kidding, did we? Oh, wow, that'd be amazing. How far are we in?
3 hours. I told you.
No way.
I told you.
That's awesome. I'm so glad we did it. Oh man, I know there's stuff. I know I've like even talked to you about some things like I wanted to bring up. I wanted to be more inappropriate than I was. I'm sorry, Dave. I was too professional.
That's all right.
Do you want to leave it in the last little segment that you can just cut out and edit out for private use only?
Oh no. I was flying over here today, right? And I was sitting next to this old guy. I don't remember his name, but he worked for AT&T for 100 years, and the whole time he's peppering me with dad jokes. He's like, "Hey, gay. Let me tell you this joke about the Pope and a pizza," or whatever. So I'm sitting over here for the last leg of my flight, and he's peppering me with jokes. And I told him, I was like, I do some stand-up myself. And he goes, "Oh, tell me a joke." And I was like, "No, I don't think I can do that, sir." He says, "Do you have anything like that?" I was like, no, I really don't. There's nothing that I could not in front of the old lady sitting next to me or you or whatever. So he leans into me at the end and he tells me his only dirty joke. And it wasn't. It was so vanilla. It was bad. And so we're getting ready to leave, and I find out. I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "Come here." I said, "The only thing worse than 2 girls running with scissors?" And he goes, "No, what?" I said, 2 girls scissoring with the runs. This old guy had a fucking meltdown in the seat next to me. It was hilarious. He just wanted one guy to treat him like a man, And so yeah, I left him with that. He was laughing all the way out of the airplane, but
I'm sure I saw him at the pickup area.
Yeah.
Still laughing.
Yeah.
but I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I had a lot of fun.
No, thank you for coming out. What's the best way people to get a hold of you?
I'm on Instagram right now at Honky Strong, and I guess I don't know for the time being. We're going to be running some events. Keep an eye out for Clash Strongman coming back, and the Ultimate Athlete. We have some other things. I'll tell you something cool after we're done that I can't talk about publicly yet. But so I'm out there. I just I didn't come out here to hype anything, just to chat and rant a little bit.
Sounds good. We have the link in the description, and with that, we're done.
Yeah,
I got
awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yep.